that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through clicking on the following website address, www.zoom.us/J/7540766629, or by dialing the following phone number, 929-208-6099, and entering the password 754-076629. For those who want to provide public testimony, please dial *9 to alert the host when you want to speak. The host will unmute you during the public hearing portion of the meeting. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public on how to access the meeting using the Zoom platform, and instructions are provided at the City of Concord's website at www.concordnh.gov/273/planning-board. And C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there is a problem with access. If anyone has a problem, please call the planning department at 603-225-2815 or send an email to planning@concordnh.gov. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled for a future time. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting will be done so as a roll call vote. With each member states their presence, please also state whether you're in the room alone during the meeting, which is required under if you're in the room or anyone is with you in the room during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. With that, let's start the meeting. Take a roll call attendance. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll? Heather?
Sorry, I was on mute. Oh. Chairman Woodpin?
Here.
Councilor Pierce?
You're on mute.
I am here and alone in the room.
I'm sorry, I'm alone in the room as well, Heather. Sorry for that.
Okay. Member Regan?
Here, no, I'm alone in the room.
Member Rosenberger?
I'm here and alone in the room.
Member Hicks?
I'm here and alone in the room.
And Member Fox? You are on mute, David.
Is that better?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm here and alone in the room.
Excellent. Member Santa Cruz.
Here and alone in the room.
Yeah.
All right, we got a lot of lonely people alone in a room on St. Patrick's night. So thank you for your service, everybody. And staff, thank you for your service as well. First item on the agenda tonight is approval of the February 17th minutes. Would someone like to make any changes to those minutes as submitted? I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
603-225-8515 is the correct number to reach.
I think we get that wrong every month. I'll change it.
That's why I'm here.
225-8515.
I move the minutes be accepted.
We got any changes? If anybody would not like to make any changes to it, would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, a motion was made and seconded. Got Earl making it, had Matt second. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodpin?
Yes.
Member Regan?
Yes.
Member Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Member Fox?
Aye.
Member Hicks?
Aye.
Member Rosenberger?
Yes.
Councilor Pierce?
Aye.
So your job tonight is to switch between ayes and yeses every other time. So let's see how we do. All right, just a quick item overview agenda for anyone listening tonight regarding two items on our agenda. Item 7D, Brixmore application has been continued to the April 21st Planning Board meeting, and we will postpone the code next discussion that's at the end of our meeting tonight. All other items that are on the agenda posted will be heard tonight. So that moves us to item 5, On the agenda or a determination of completeness component, Heather, could we read that into the record?
3G Eagle LLC is requesting major site plan approval for construction of a new parking lot, a conditional use permit for the addition of impervious surface in the Aquifer Protection District, and a CUP to construct fewer spaces than are required at 25 Henniker Street in the Industrial District. Staff is recommending that the application be determined complete and that the public hearing be set for the April 21st meeting. Staff is also recommending that the project be determined a development of regional impact because the site location is in the Aquifer Protection District for Pembroke.
Okay, so we have a determination of completeness component. Staff has found the application complete and recognized that this is a development of regional impact. Someone like to make a motion to find the application complete, recognize that it's a development of regional impact, and set the public meeting and the public hearing for April 21st.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by John Regan, seconded by David Fox. All those in favor by roll call.
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce.
Yes.
Okay, moves us on to item 6 portion in our agenda, which is design review applications. Consent, Heather, 6A?
No, we don't have any
Oh,
by
okay,
consent.
sorry. Okay, so we'll take them one at a time. If we could read item 6A into the record.
New Hampshire Signs, on behalf of Global Partners, request ADR approval for the replacement of an existing internally illuminated freestanding sign panel and the installation of several new design elements around the gas pumps at 1 Whitney Road in the Gateway Performance District. So this is both somewhat of an amendment to their previous ADR approval that was part of their major site plan, and also the new signs.
Okay.
And ADR did recommend, I believe, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, approval with, I don't believe, any conditions.
That's correct.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve those, the signs as submitted with ADR, with no ADR recommendations?
Well, this is under our public hearing section.
Oh, okay, so we'll
Didn't do
open
any
a
by
public hearing,
consent, so we
sorry.
might just want to check if anybody.
No consent, so if anybody, any member of the audience has a question, concern regarding this application, please make yourself known by hitting *9 if you're calling in, or raising your hand if you are in the audience here. What do we got? 24 people in the audience.
I'm not seeing anyone.
Anybody's hands raised, so.
Mr. Chairman, I do
yes.
have a quick question.
Certainly.
Sorry. I'm looking at the picture they provided showing these orange kind of pieces near the gas pumps, and they show a direction of traffic flow, and the picture makes it look like the traffic flow is heading toward the building.
Yeah.
But yet, if you've been on that site, or you look at the picture that they provide further down, I think it was a street view picture, all the cars actually are faced out of the pumps away from the building. I just want to make sure they're aware that it's not a big deal, but is that really the side they meant to show those things and the direction they meant to show them on?
We do have a representative of this application present who has just raised his hand. So I'm now promoting you to panelist, Peter March, I believe. And here he comes. So Peter, you've been promoted to panelist, and you can either unmute yourself, or if you have video, you can put yourself on video. And there you go. Are you there?
Yeah, I am. I can't find the video.
Oh, that's okay. We can hear you.
Probably better off not seeing me. You're correct on the direction of those the waves. They will face the predominant direction of the traffic enters the site.
So they'll actually be reverse of what the image shows in the application.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just want to clarify that so they didn't have to come back in if something changed during installation.
Okay.
What's with the $7.77 a gallon for the gas too on the move?
Buy it now.
That's
Keeps going up every day, unfortunately.
right. Any other questions for this application? And I don't see any members of the audience with their hands up. Thank you, Mr. March. Let's accept the motion. If someone would like to make a motion to approve that sign as submitted.
So moved.
Oh, do you
Second.
want to close the public hearing?
Oh.
Whoops.
We'll close the public hearing. We'll still recognize Jeff's motion, and was it John second?
Yes, yep.
John was second. All those in favor by roll call? Heather?
Counselor, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to put him back in the attendees. Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. Let's move on to item 6B in our agenda. If we could read that into the record.
Item 6B is.
Why don't we, you want to figure out how to get him out of the.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure, I don't understand the answers. Oh, he's hung up, I think,
Oh,
but
okay.
I should be able to put him back and I don't see the option, so I apologize. 6B is wood and wood signs on behalf of Charter Trust Company requesting ADR approval for the replacement of 3 non-illuminated wall signs at 90 North Main Street in the Central Business Performance District. ADR had recommended that this application be tabled. Believe the representative from Charter Trust had indicated that they were going to bring additional graphics, but I don't believe, Sam, is that correct? They ever did?
We have received them. We received them a day ago, and I can
Oh,
share my
okay.
screen.
Well, so I don't know if the board wants to just send it back to ADR and have them review it, or if the board wants to entertain the revised graphics.
I'd like to have ADR's weigh in on this particularly.
So ADR had made the recommendation to table.
So we need a motion to table?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second.
A motion was made and seconded by Councilor Pierce. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, moves us on to, so tabled till next meeting or until you get what we need and they get through ADR.
Correct.
Okay.
6C is has requested a continuance since they were. I thought it would be best if the board made a motion to do the continuance rather than just simply say it's postponed, since it's not a regular site plan application.
So the applicant requested the postponement?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's
So-
Wilcox and Barton for ADR approval for a new ADA access, awning and exterior renovations of the building at 10 Pleasant Street, which is the lighting building in the Central Business Performance District.
It's down on Pleasant Street Extension.
Correct.
Right. What's the best way to handle it? You want to table or you want to?
Just make a motion to table.
Okay, I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second.
Motion to, I'm sorry, we should specify that we're tabling it till April 21st.
Table till April 21st at the applicant's request. Was that?
Correct.
Good second still, Earl?
Yes.
Councilor Pierce has seconded that. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, that got us through our design review applications. And those two applications being tabled, we'll move on to item 7 in our agenda, which is the site plan, subdivision, and conditional use permit applications. We read item 7A into the agenda,
S
into the
and
record,
H,
sorry.
correct, sure. S&H Land Services on behalf of the Jobin Family Trust of 2006, requesting minor subdivision approval for a 3-lot subdivision for the property off Blackwater Road and Horse Hill Road in the open space residential district. Staff does recommend that it be determined complete, not a development of regional impact, and that we open the public hearing.
Okay, so we got a determination completeness component. It is not a development of regional impact. Would someone like to make a motion to find the application complete and open the public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
Motion is made by John Regan and seconded by David Fox. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, we will open the public hearing, and if you are here to give us a report on this from the public, if you could make yourself known to the host, If we could get a quick staff update on this project.
Sure. So it's a 3-lot subdivision. The corner of Horse Hill and Black Hill Road. It's across from that big red barn, if you're familiar with that area. The one issue, we've worked through most of the issues. They submitted site distance plans to us today from their engineer. So one of the things that is probably a condition, if you're amenable to it, is to require site distance easements, I believe it's called, Gary. There's some vegetation that would be in the way on once the properties are subdivided. It would be on the adjacent property. It's all within the subdivision itself, but once they're subdivided, we want to make sure that there's an easement that allows them to remove vegetation on the adjacent property owner. We haven't discussed this with the applicant yet. We just talked about this before the meeting. So they're on the call, Ryan and Tom, I believe.
Okay.
So we'll give them an opportunity to speak to that. But other than that, I believe they've addressed all of our comments.
So I see Ryan and Tom, who I'm allowing to speak. I don't know if they would like to speak or become panelists so they can share screen. I'm also seeing 2 people's hand raised, but I don't know if that's just members of the public. We'd like to allow the, I see a 603-856-4260. Is that a member of the public or is that Ryan or Tom?
No, I'm here digitally. Tom should be.
I'm here now. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
I can
Hi,
start
I'm
the presentation.
856-4260.
Okay, I'm going to put you on mute again and just until the consultants finish speaking, okay?
Sure.
Okay, I'm Tom. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm Tom Hewitt from S&H Land Services. We're here tonight representing the Jobin Family Trust. Rich Jobin is in the audience, I believe, as well, and could answer any questions non-survey related. The property, as stated, is on Horse Hill and Blackwater Road. The parent tract is right now approximately 57.8 acres. It's a large tract. We are proposing to create 2 additional building lots. One will be over 5 acres and one will be over 6 acres. So they're substantially sized. All the lots will be serviced by on-site wells and septic systems. We did get staff and engineering comments yesterday, and we addressed all of them. We just found out about the site distance request yesterday, but our engineer, Roki Consulting, was able to put together plans for us. I know they haven't had time to review everything at the engineering probably, but the plans Roki do show that all the lots meet the site distance requirements. That'll, of course, have to be approved officially by engineering. As far as easements for the site distance, that's fine. Again, we just got the comments yesterday, so we were just trying to get a plan out that showed that we met everything, but we can certainly add any easements to the plan. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward application. We are not requesting any waivers or variances for this application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Tom, is there a house on this lot now?
No, this parcel is completely vacant right now.
So all, what is it, 57 acres? Is that right?
Correct. There are no structures on the property.
And as I'm looking at the plan here, there's a cutout for that the first lot. I guess it's Janet Bourne at lot 18, and then so you're 1, 2, and 3 right across, all on Horse Hill Road, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. Any member of the audience wish to address or have any questions? I thought you had a hand up, Heather.
Yes, we do. So I think, is that Janet? I've unmuted. Yep. Are you the 4260, Janet?
Yes.
Okay, good. You show up twice. I'm just making sure that they're both you.
Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. Just state your name for the record.
State your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Janet Bourne. I am at 116 Horse Hill Road. I am lot 18 in the bottom right-hand corner of that map. Mm-hmm. Exit, the subdivision 17.1 goes around me in an L. So in general, I don't see any problems. I guess I just wanted to bring a few things to note. Down the right side of that map is a seasonal stream, and I'm hearing myself twice, so I'm having trouble concentrating.
If you mute one of your, I'm not sure if you're on your phone and the video, but if you mute one, that might take care of that.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay,
We don't hear
fabulous.
the
I
echo.
muted my phone and that solved it. So on the right-hand side of that map, you'll see a seasonal stream that comes down off the power line. There's only 2 culverts for that stream, and both of them are located in my yard. So I am usually monitoring that stream every year just to make sure there's no issues with it. So to me, it's just unfortunate that that stream is broken up on 2 different pieces of property. It would have been nice if that stream remained on one piece of property. The second piece is I am on that lot 17-1. You'll see like a little bubble area of wetlands with the 50-foot setbacks. I'm glad that they did delineate that. That is my only protection from the flooding into my yard. The stream did divert once and it did come into my yard. And, I saw no need to call the Jobins. I just fixed where it jumped its bank and it went back where it belonged and was fine. So I'm just thankful that that is there. And I guess my only concern is that is probably from the naked eye, a beautiful flat piece of land because the water's only there about 25% of the time. So I just will have to hope any new landowner is going to honor those wetlands and the setbacks. The last thing, I guess, is I'm sure this happens all around town, but my concern for the traffic and the inability to see at times. If I have visitors, I tell them that they have to roll down the windows and listen. They cannot go by sight. You have to listen to hear if a car is coming. People pass on that stretch of road. I went to turn left into my driveway coming from that sharp corner. And as I slowed down before I put my blinker on, someone passed me on the left. This was just a month ago. People use that sharp corner as a challenge and then come bombing down that little straightaway. I think if police reports certainly document many of the accidents, and there have been deaths at the corner, that sharp corner, but the police don't document. Anytime a car flies off into the woods, it doesn't necessarily get noticed by the police. So there are quite a few accidents or people going off the road on that stretch. So I was, 2 driveways. I was surprised to see the 3rd driveway for the largest piece. I would have hoped that driveway could have been over on the Blackwater side of the piece of property. So I just want to note concern about that stretch of road and the danger.
Okay. Any questions for was it Janet? Any questions for Janet from the board, staff? Okay, great. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I want to note, Janet is the letter that I emailed to you all before the meeting.
Okay.
So that's the same.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any other audience members, Heather?
No, there's not. But after kind of zooming into that, I had a question. Are the driveways the right distance? Are they like 40 feet apart? I think I can't remember what this driveway separation is, but it complies with that.
I see Gary shaking his head. Gary.
It just looks so close when you zoomed in.
Okay.
It's a big site. The scale is kind of.
I think they're about 100 when you scale it off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, comments from the board or from staff? No waivers, right, Heather? There's nothing.
No.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this plan as outlined? Whoops. Heather, go ahead.
We need to add once you close the public hearing.
So
add the
we'll
condition with the
take that. We'll take that first. We'll close the public hearing, and then Beth, can you give me some verbiage to add the condition regarding the easements for the public access to trim the bushes?
Sure. So it'll be a precedent condition number 6. Applicant shall provide a copy of a site distance easement to to allow for site distance, including ability to clear vegetation in the right of way for properties along Black Hill Road.
Okay.
Wait, is it Black Hill Road or Horse Hill Road?
Horse Hill
Gary?
Road.
Horse Hill Road.
Can I suggest we modify that slightly to say that no structures, embankments, or vegetation within those, so somebody doesn't go up and put a fence along the property within the easement, and the easement only says trim? Thank you.
Okay, so could we just read that back, Heather, or Beth, just to make sure we all understand what we're doing?
Sure. Applicant shall provide easements, shall provide site distant easements, which shall include ability to clear vegetation, and there shall be no structures, embankments, or vegetation within the site distant easement area along Horse Hill Road.
We'll recognize that as precedent condition 6, and I won't try to repeat it. All right.
I'm glad Lisa's taping this.
Yeah. So in our packet here, we have really nothing that needs to be addressed. So would someone like to make a motion to grant the minor subdivision approval for the 3-lot subdivision at Blackwater Road and Horse Hill Road, subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions, and those are outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 6 as modified, and subsequent conditions 1, looks like just 1A and 1B. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that minor subdivision as outlined?
So moved. Second.
Motion was made by David Fox, seconded by John Regan. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodman,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries. Good luck with that project. We'll move on to item 7B in our agenda.
Wilcox and Barton Incorporated, on behalf of New Hampshire Distributors, request an amendment to a previously approved major site plan application to reduce the scope of the proposal at 65 Regional Drive in the Industrial District. This does not require a completeness or a DRI statement since it was already a previously approved application. But Sam could give you a staff update while I see if I can find Aaron Lambert.
Okay, Sam?
Happy to. I will share my screen. So as stated, this is a reduction in scope, and I'll start with what was approved back in 2017. This is the existing facility right here with existing parking there. The original proposal was to add this addition as well as this addition and a third curb cut and a looping driveway with additional parking here. The reduction consists of removing this or not building this second addition, this larger addition here, and instead just a canopy and a couple of parking spaces here. The smaller 17,000 square foot addition will be built. And then instead of doing the third curb cut with the looping driveway, no additional curb cut will be constructed, and they will just be parking here and here. So a fairly significant reduction, yet still enough to trigger planning board review.
Great. And Heather, I think you said Aaron Lambert was here to give us any additional details. I don't know that we need additional details. I don't know if it's
Sam, if you stop sharing, I can see if she's with
Yep,
us.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. Yep, Sam covered all the basics, so I won't go into greater detail unless you have questions. But yeah, the general gist is that we were going to close a curb cut and relocate it. So the plan that you see before you, because we're not building the larger addition, we no longer need to relocate the curb cut, and we no longer need to build the large circular driveway. And the parking has been reduced to a new 34 lot parking lot, which will be accessed off the existing driveway. I know there had been a question, everything was being reduced. So the lighting plan that's in your packet, I think still had some details for lighting associated with the driveway and the closed curb cut. So there will only be 3 new light poles for the truck parking and 6 new light poles for the new parking lot. So those extraneous light poles will be removed if you are seeing them on the lighting plan.
okay. And we're reducing impervious surface and reducing roof coverage, I guess. So everything is good, right?
We are, yeah. So the big thing we did, all of the new pavement will be directed into an underground gallery. We reduced that gallery, but it's still controlling and infiltrating all of the stormwater up through the 100-year storm.
Great. Questions from the board? Jeff?
I could. Yeah, the one you said the lighting plan wasn't 100% accurate, but I do have a question. You show some of the lighting values on the existing driveway spilling out over the property line in excess of 1 foot candle, when I know the regulations say to try and minimize that. Is that light pole one of the ones that is or is not still going to be installed?
I will have to look. All of the light poles should have a back shield. So, the ones that, yes, there is, if Sam shows, yeah. So you can see the outline of the parking in the driveway that's no longer going to be built. The only thing that's will be built is in gray. So yes, those light poles that are casting light onto what would have been the new curb cut will not be in place. So that won't happen.
Okay.
Yeah, right
That's
above
where
Sam.
that's where I was getting confused. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I apologize. I think we sent a plan that wasn't quite final. So it's the only thing that will go in will be the new light poles around the gray 34 space parking lot, and then light poles to light the 20-foot deep truck parking spaces.
And I have no more questions.
Okay. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, just to follow up on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The lights that you are putting in is it normal practice now to make these lights night sky compatible?
Absolutely. Yes. Concord's ordinance requires it. So they'll all be fully downcast. The ones that are parallel to the road will have a back shield to prevent the light trespass outside of where we want it directed, which is just on the parking spaces and walkways.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm being reminded that we may have forgotten to formally open the public hearing.
I was just thinking I gotta close the public hearing and I didn't even open it.
Yeah, I know, right?
So we'll formally recognize that the public hearing is open and ask the public if anybody has any questions to please make yourself known. If not, we will just let me know, Heather. If not, we will move to item 3.1 in our packet here, which is to grant the site plan amendment approval for the alterations of a previously approved parking configuration and related site improvements at 65 Regional Drive. That is with precedent conditions 1, 2, and 3, and subsequent conditions 1 through 5. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that site plan approval as outlined?
So moved. Second.
It was made by Councilor Pierce and seconded by John Regan. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin?
Aye.
Member Regan?
Aye.
Member Rosenberger?
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Member Hicks?
Aye.
Member Fox?
Aye.
Councilor Pierce?
Okay, that motion carries. Good luck with the project. And
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item 7C in our agenda. We could read that into the record.
Item C is North and South Construction Services requesting building permits for the 4 buildings in Phase 6 to be issued prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the Abbott House at 1-8 Cleveland Avenue, formerly 382 North State Street. And I believe we have a staff update for this.
Okay, and if the applicant can make themselves known so we can welcome them to the table, but if we could get a staff update from Heather or from Beth or Sam.
Sure. So this is, they were before you about 6 months ago, trying to figure out, a year ago, trying to figure out a plan for the Abbott House. There was the proposal for a subdivision. Once they did the subdivision, it was determined they would need a variance, and the variance was denied by the ZBA. So the applicant chose to move forward with the restoration or renovation of the Abbott House. They have hired Steve Bedard to help with that. And I believe Steve is also, I saw his name in the audience earlier. I don't know if he's still there, but, and Jason Garland's also on the phone call. So they are working on that. I'm sure you've driven by and seen the dumpsters out there, but they would like to start getting the foundations in for the final 4 buildings. This is Phase 6. These are the last 4 buildings within the development. So they're requesting to get the building permits for these 4 buildings so they can start construction, get it going so they can build it over the summer and get this project completed, and anticipation that they won't get any COs until they are completed with the Abbott House. And that is a condition of approval. That's recommended.
So we will open the public hearing and welcome the applicant to the table. If you guys could state your name for the record.
I'll just let Jason and Steve know that I promoted you to panelists. So if you'd like to turn on your video or unmute yourselves, you can do either of those things.
Yes, hi, Steve Bedard. I'm unmuted, I hope. And
Yes, you are.
okay. Jason,
I don't know, Jason. If you're there, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Can you
There you
hear
go.
me now?
Yes.
So I think, Beth, it was pretty straightforward what we're looking for. We were here 6 months ago looking to subdivide off the Abbott House. The variance was denied. We have since moved forward. We've hired Bedard Preservation as a consultant on best way to preserve the Abbott House and move forward with the renovation. We've structurally, it's secure now. It's in the phase where we're doing all the mechanicals, electrical, plumbing. Anticipate probably another 2.5 months to the point of completion. We're looking to start the final phase and hoping that by being able to pull the permits next month, we could at least get the foundations and get a start on that, with the understanding that no COs would be issued on those units until we have one on the Abbott House.
Okay. Any questions from the board regarding this application? Council Pierce. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up there. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Either Mr. Garland or Mr. Bedard, when you talk about completion of the Abbott House and a certificate of occupancy, what does completion of the Abbott House look like? What is it, a single unit? What are your plans for it?
It is a single unit. It's essentially a detached single family condo as part of the association.
Okay, and the approval for your project is how many units?
80 total.
And that includes the Abbott House?
That includes the Abbott House. The approval did leave some flexibility on the Abbott House to be a duplex or potentially even a commercial unit, even though it's not zoned for that. As we're moving forward, it will be a single family detached condo as the 80th unit.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd just like to say, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
I'd just like to say that I reviewed the progress on 2 occasions. I was there as late as yesterday. And there's some interesting features that were discovered when doing the course of demolition. They found the original, actually the house started out as a 2-over-2 house with summer beam construction with beaded summer beam timbers and little small floor joists that were beveled on the edges, which indicate that the ceilings were meant to be exposed. And they have wonderful color from the smoke from the chimneys, and those have been saved in the main part of the house. The kitchens, bathrooms, and those items have been placed basically in the backside of the house. The L has been opened up and has some structural members added to it, engineered structural members added to it. So it can be an open concept looking up to the ceiling and whatnot underneath. So and doors are going to be reused in different places. The original flooring is going to stay in place and be refinished where it is. The staircase from 1860 will stay there. So I have to say that Jason, I think, has really made a good faith effort to maintain some features of the house outside as well as inside.
Great to hear. And it was, so the front facade of that was originally 2/2?
2/2, yes. Yeah, one room deep, 2/2, about 20 feet deep. Had a center chimney, triple run stairway in the front. Just massive timbers, just that are actually beaded. The timbers themselves were beaded rather than having boards that go over the timbers. It's just it's the earliest construction, the type of construction that you'll see in the Concord area.
Great. Well worth saving. So good job.
Definitely.
Good job. Okay, questions again from the board? We'll open it up to any members of the audience. If any members of the audience have questions, concerns regarding this, so if you could make yourself known to the board here. I don't see any. Heather, no? Okay, so report-wise for us, Heather, on the project, we've got really just we don't have any recommendations or anything as far as the plan piece goes, right?
Yeah, I'll defer to Beth on the appropriate way to proceed.
Yeah.
Nothing's changing with the plan, so it's just those two recommendations for releasing
the
building
two recommendations, I'll read them into the record. So we've got them here to authorize the issuance of 17 building permits for 1, 2, 7, and 8 Cleveland Avenue, subject to the conditions of certificates of occupancy for 4 Cleveland Avenue, which we know longingly as the Abbott House. And number 2, which is as part of the motion, please state that all conditions of the original approval, extension, and amendment shall remain in full force and effect. So would someone like to make a motion to authorize the issuance of those 17 building permits as outlined with the recommendation that as part of this, all the conditions of the original approval and extension amendment shall remain in full force and effect?
I'm just going to suggest that you close the public hearing. I'm
Okay.
getting yelled at a bunch about that.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay.
So we don't have everybody in front of us, so I can't end it and do it the right way. So you'd think I'd have learned by now.
That's okay.
So we'll close the
I'll
public
just keep
hearing.
interrupting you.
I won't read it all back into the record, but would someone like to make a motion to authorize those building permits as I outlined?
So moved.
John
Second.
Regan made that motion, seconded by Matt Hicks. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
and Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Good luck. Get those units done, and not that we don't love seeing you guys, but hopefully we'll get you guys squared away and get that project done and behind us. Okay, moves us on to item 7D in our agenda. Do we read that into the record? I was going to make a wise crack and say, well, 7D, we're not going to hear that tonight, but there's 18 people left as attendees that probably don't want me to say that. So let's read item 7D into the record if we could.
TF Moran, on behalf of ZJBV Properties, LLC, requests comprehensive development plan approval for a 2-phase mixed-use project consisting of multifamily structures, attached residential structures, and a commercial use. Also requested is a major site plan approval for construction of Phase 1, consisting of 3 residential apartment buildings totaling 236 units with associated parking and site improvements, and a conditional use permit to allow construction of fewer parking spaces than are required at 70 Pembroke Road in the Opportune Corridor Performance District. I just have a quick question. Did we actually approve the comprehensive development plan last month? So we didn't.
No, it was just determination complete.
Oh, it was determination complete. Okay, I apologize. So that, yes, that was determined complete last month. And we do recommend to open the public hearing. I don't know if we have an update.
Okay, so we will open up the public hearing. Welcome welcome anybody that's here representing. Please make yourself known to the host, and we will pull you into the panel. If we could get a quick staff update on this massive project, that would be great.
I won't go too into details because I'm sure Greg and Nick will give us a lovely presentation of the project, but Yep, as we're looking for is the comprehensive development plan. We've worked a lot with the applicant over the past couple months and prior to that to come up with something that we think will work. We've worked a lot with the traffic study. There's some items that we're still working on, but there are recommendations within the report to address some of the pedestrian access issues, such as adding a sidewalk to Canterbury Road as part of phase 1 instead of waiting for phase 2, and doing some intersection improvements for crossing and accessibility. There's the conditional use permit for parking, which staff supports, and then a few waivers that staff also supports. So yeah, I will pass this on to the applicant.
We'll let the applicant state their names for the record, if you could.
All right, good evening. My name is Nick Golan. I'm a licensed engineer and principal at TF Moran, here on behalf of the project team for this proposed phased multifamily redevelopment project. As noted in the opening, this is 70 Pembroke Road, tax map 632Z, lot 87, comprised of approximately 24 acres. If you're not familiar with this site, this is the former Sprague Electric Facility. What I'd like to do is I'll go through a little bit of a existing conditions share, talk a little bit about our phase program, and then talk about the phase of development that we are prepared to share this evening. First, let me introduce our team. The owner applicant, which is ZJBV Properties, our owner rep, Mr. Greg Micheletti from August Consulting, our architect, Rob Martell, and then also our traffic engineer, Bob Duvall from TF Moran. So if I can, what I'd like to do is get us started with a nice little Google Earth view, just so that we can get ourselves located. So relative to the property, this is 70 Pembroke Road. What we have relative to the surrounding areas, Canterbury Road to the west, Regional Drive along the southerly portion, Pembroke Road to the north, further to the east, Chanel Drive, and then further to the west, Airport Road, which will be important when Bob has the opportunity to speak to the traffic components. Relative to our abutters, we do have residential abutters to our west here along Canterbury Road, also to the north. I believe to the east, this is the Concord Christian Academy, and the fairly predominant feature to the south, that being the airport. The building itself, I'm not sure if I mentioned, is about 115,000 square feet, has a various number of tenants, currently consisting of the community bridges, Concord Commercial Driving School, and then several warehouse and light industrial uses. This is located within the OFP zone, which does allow the residential use as part of this comprehensive development plan that is being proposed. Relative to the phasing of our project, if I can, there are 4 phases of this project that are being proposed. Phase 1A is the phase that we're looking for approval this evening. This is a multifamily use and consists of 3 4-story buildings. I'll go ahead and share our comprehensive development plan so we can get a chance to take a look at that. So relative to these 4 phases, our phase 1A, this is the portion that's located along the southerly portion of the site. This includes those 236 multifamily units. Our larger structure indicating 96 units to the west, and then working our way east, we have 2 very similar units of 70 units each. Rob Martell will be able to speak to the architecture of those structures momentarily. You can see we've been fairly strategic with the placement of these buildings to make sure we are shielding the residential abutters from potential headlight traffic or otherwise associated with the parking areas. As Beth opened, this has been a fairly long process, although we've been working directly with this summary with staff for the last few months. This project goes back well over a year and has gone through multiple iterations to what you see before you. Additional phases to this project, or to this overall phase project, phase 1B, this would be a mixed use component, commercial use, something that would tie in well with the surrounding area and provide an amenity to these proposed residentials. We have phase 2A, which would be a very similar structure to what we're proposing in the first phase. This would house 48 multifamily units. And then a use that is, I think, somewhat special and different to Concord, we have these proposed townhouse units. These would be 3 stories with a driveway behind, again, with the intent to provide more of a traditional residential feel, especially along Canterbury as well as Pembroke, where you'd be walking out of the front door across your sidewalk, and then to a sidewalk along Canterbury Road, taking you out to this intersection with Pembroke Road. This would provide some safe connectivity to Keach Park, which is located in the northwest quadrant beyond the plan that we're viewing. So this is our overall snapshot of the project itself. Something I thought that would be helpful in locating ourselves is, again, to take a look at our Google Earth image and see a little bit of an overlay of where this is in context to our surroundings. And I'll get into the nitty-gritty of really the bits and pieces of what we're proposing. So here we see 70 Pembroke Road, the existing industrial building. What we've created is a little bit of an overlay to give you an expectation of where this project sits in relationship to its surroundings. So this is building A, building B, and building C, the areas of parking that which surround it. You'll notice this is shifted pretty strategically to the east in recognition of the fact that we do have some residential abutters and trying to provide as much separation from these proposed structures as possible. Interesting fact for this project, we did have the opportunity to do a little community meeting where we invited our abutters out to see the initial preliminary planning for the project, gave us the opportunity to hear what those potential concerns were. It was great. We had a few of our city councilors that attended as well. So it really provided the opportunity for some nice initial input so that we could better craft our project to try as fit as seamlessly as it can within the area of the neighborhood. Now, one of the things we do recognize is this is an existing industrial lot. So anything we do here is kind of a change to the neighborhood. The intent with this project is really to be consistent with the master plan and the expectations that was expressed to us from staff itself. So what I'd like to do is we'll stop sharing this overall image.
Hey, Nick.
Go ahead and give you kind of the sheet by sheet so we can take a little bit of a look at what we're proposing for the development itself.
Hey, Nick.
This is our overall site layout plan. Somewhat.
Nick.
Oh, sorry. I got on a run there.
Yeah, sorry. Can you go back to that Google Earth? You don't have to go back, but on the Google Earth view that you had, the phase one, you obviously showing phase one there. Do I see the other phases?
I do not. So in that we're here tonight, really for
phase one. That's fine.
I wanted to make sure that that was our focus.
Yep, that's fine. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So when does the building in the middle get addressed?
Certainly. So right now there are existing leases that'll run in the 5 to 6 year term on that building. The expectation is the phasing of our project is really going to follow those leases. So we wouldn't see the Sprague building come down for at least 5 or 6 years. Within the staff report, we provided a little bit of staff provided a snapshot as far as anticipated construction. That phase 1A that we had shown in 2022, phase 1B, which was the mixed use building in 2026, the one 4-story building for the multifamily in 2027, and then those townhouses, which would be phase 2B in 2027.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Nick, can I ask a question as long as we're on a little pause here?
Sure.
This is something I don't know if we ever talked about. Or maybe I haven't seen any pictures of it, but for phase one, since it is going to be a while since you construct the other phases, are you going to put up are you going to put some trees or some buffering or some screening for that existing building there? Take up some of the parking area just to put some landscaping?
Relative to the separation between the two uses that would be on the parent lot, no. So I'll talk a little bit about that when we go through our landscaping. But the reality is the existing parking that is here is allocated to those uses. There is leased space for the trucking companies that are used within that paved area that do need to be maintained. So what we'd end up seeing really is a sidewalk that would act as the perimeter to this development. You'll note there's no interconnectivity of any driveways to what's being proposed in phase one. So that way we could really focus our traffic efforts on how we're impacting regional and those surrounding areas.
So will there even be just like a grass strip or something? I mean, are you just gonna have a sidewalk through the middle of the parking lot, or? I don't know.
Not through the middle of the parking lot. That parking lot would be essentially obliterated as part of this project. So, and I can touch on this as we look at our site plans, but this that's located centrally. This is really a nice common green with a pavilion that would be centrally located. So the area inboard from this yellow line, which represents a proposed sidewalk, this provides area of green space. The proposed curbing provides a solid demarcation from the areas of existing pavement that will continue to be used as part of the existing use. We'll talk about that landscaping element and buffering. We didn't focus so much on buffering this use from the parent use, but more so buffering our proposed use from our surrounding areas.
Okay, so we don't want to hold you up on that. Earl, did you have a question on this view right here?
Yeah, I could. Yes, please. And Beth had mentioned it earlier. Nick, are there any plans, or do I understand there are some discussions on extending the sidewalk up to Pembroke Road during phase 1?
Indeed, there is. So I'm going to go ahead.
Okay, good.
And that's actually a good lead into the next portion of conversation. Through the course of the review of the project, obviously there's always input from multiple parties. One of those components, and actually was born from the traffic study and trying to provide more safety to the residents along Canterbury Road, is the incorporation of a sidewalk. So what we would see is the interconnecting sidewalk that's currently being proposed for phase 1A here. Our plans would be then updated to provide a sidewalk that would interconnect with Canterbury Road and bring us all the way up to Pembroke Road, where we do have existing sidewalks that then would continue down Canterbury Road and interlink with the area of Keach Park. So the applicant has agreed to move that from a future phase into the current phase of the project at staff's request.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so continue on.
All right, we'll switch over here to our development plans. So this is the black and white version, we'll say, of what's being proposed. I'm just going to go through the locating of the structures in relationship to their surroundings. We'll talk a little bit about grading and drainage, the overall layout of the facility, site lighting, and then we'll give Rob the opportunity to speak a little bit about our buildings before Bob talks about our traffic. So relative to the layout of the facility, actually one of the changes that we incorporated at staff's request, the original concept plan had a much larger massing of pavement in this area for dumpster location. We've been able to refine that to more of the minimal area necessary. The expectation is building A and B would make use of this dumpster location. As we work our way west to east across the site, one component that you do not see, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding with myself and city staff, was the request for some additional sidewalk. Now we have sidewalk obviously around the perimeter of the parking lot. There was an additional request for a centrally located sidewalk. We had perceived that to be running east to west, which creates some operational functional issues. The reality is what we're really looking for is to connect this existing sidewalk all the way through our parking lot to Regional Drive. Again, it promotes the interests of what we've been talking about for the master plan, interconnectivity, providing a walkable community. There are not the same walkable issues or functional issues with snowplow removal or otherwise with providing a sidewalk. So that would be in addition to what you see on this plan here, is a sidewalk really running from our pavilion area between buildings A and B all the way through to Regional Drive. As we work our way across this massing of the parking lot, one of the things that I had mentioned in our opening is what we have done is used our buildings essentially to shield the parking lot from the residential abutters. One of the things we hear fairly regularly with these types of projects are concerns with headlights for vehicles shining into existing residential houses or otherwise. In this case, it provides us the opportunity to use our buildings to shield those lights and keep that condensed to within the area of our parking lot. Another site feature that's proposed and is consistent with the conditional use permit we're requesting, we are proposing a bus stop that would be located here on Regional Drive. We have public transport available, makes a lot of sense. And again, it provides that interconnectivity of municipal services that would be important to see in a project like this thrive. As we continue to work our way across the site to the east, we see building B of 70 units, accessible parking located in the front. Our primary entrance, or I should say our entrance to the site would be off of Regional Drive. in order to provide additional pedestrian safety, what we've done is we've offset our sidewalk from Regional Drive just to provide more security. It's an easier walk, it's a shorter distance. We've evaluated the overall turning movements that would be required both for this phase as well as future phases, as well as evaluated the capacity of this intersection to make sure that it's appropriately addressed as we move forward with a future phase and the potential for the interconnectivity of this road to other phases. Our last structure here is Building C. This will be comprised of 70 units. You'll see again, we have a dumpster strategically located relative to this use, accessible parking directly in front of the building. One of the things that we have tried to accomplish with this project is to lessen our footprint. As such, we are requesting that conditional use permit for the 1.5 parking spaces per unit versus 2. But what we have shown in our overall plan scheme is the ability to provide the 2 units or 2 spaces per unit that's required. We've prepared some specific plans to that, which I'll flip to so we can take a quick look at that. These locations are located to the west of the existing dumpster pad and then to the east of our existing parking lot. To give you a more detailed view of how those would be constructed, we can see this sheet. This provides us that opportunity to pick up an additional 100 parking spaces. We believe relative to the conditional use permit, it's consistent with this type of development. It's consistent with the ITE parking standards, and the 1.5 spaces per unit would be appropriate. But based off of your conditional use permit regulations, we have shown the ability how we could provide full conformance should it be necessary, and that the drainage systems that are associated with the site have been designed accordingly to receive those flows. Which is a good transition to talk a little bit about our grading for the site. The way in which our stormwater management will be dealt with is we'll have subsurface stormwater units. These will be underneath our parking lot. You can see that there is a system of catch basins and pipes. We'll zoom in a little bit so we can get a better image. Catch basin and pipes that'll tie to those subsurface units. We have one that's located in front of building A, one which would be located centrally between buildings A and B, another that's located in proximity to building B. And then as we work our way across the match line, we can see additional subsurface chambers located in proximity to building C, both to the west between B and C, and then directly to the south of building C located here. One of the components of the design in relationship to the grading that was of interest to staff was making sure that in any of the areas where we had snow storage, making sure that we had confirmed that when that snow melts, it's not going to be going down into the sidewalk of Regional Drive. So we have made sure we either provide cutoff swales or otherwise to make sure that this area can naturally drain towards our parking lot and into our stormwater management system such that it can be appropriately treated before being discharged into the municipal system on Regional. Other utilities to speak to, this will be municipal sewer, this will be municipal water. Flip to that sheet so we can take a quick look. Here's our utility plans. This again shows a little bit more detail relative to where those subsurface units are. It's our understanding that from a fire protection standard, we'll be able to meet all of the needs for the site. One of the items we discussed a little bit earlier was in relationship to the landscaping, which we'll flip to here. One of the areas that was identified as a concern during our community meeting, as well as by city staff, was trying to infill as much as we could with a landscape buffer relative to Canterbury Road. There is a very limited amount of clearing of existing trees that would take place here. So what we have done is infilled that with a fairly substantial buffer of Norway spruce, blue spruce, Australian pine, something that should complement what is out there now, and as it grows in, provide a suitable non-transparent buffer to that adjacent area. Overall, you'll see more landscape plantings at our entranceways to provide suitable accents. We have more mature growth parking lot shade trees that have been provided within our parking lot. One of the areas of consideration for landscaping really had to do with Regional Drive and sightlines. trying to promote more of an evergreen buffer, but not so much so that we're going to block the ability for snow melt within the parking areas and to provide suitable sight lines. So you'll see that we have nice clumps of intermingled spruce and other evergreens located throughout this area with lower ground mounted shrubs to provide really a breakup of that visual image so that you have a layered approach, which is really consistent across the property in its entirety. Again, you see the building accents with shrubbery at those entranceways, and then additional street trees, parking lot trees located throughout the development. Relative to site lighting, we will have some.
Nick, can I interrupt you here?
You may.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to my previous question about the boundary between the phase one and the treatment between those two.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume it's not clear to me where the existing parking lot ends. I would assume that this dashed line that you're showing is the end of the parking lot, and that you're going to maybe lose one or two spaces and, reroute a drive aisle along there. And that between that dashed line and the sidewalk, there would be a green space, and that there would be mirrored shade trees in that space. That way you're actually creating a space that's a phase one space that if that other building, for one thing, 5 years is a long time to kind of just have this no man's land there. So I really think you need to provide something, and that's something that wouldn't need to be removed when you went into phase two, because if I look at your concept plan, it kind of looks like that's what's there anyway.
No, that's a fair representation, Heather.
Excuse me?
That's a fair representation. No, I don't see.
Yeah. I think it's just all you're losing is maybe 20-foot strip that you're going to put some grass and trees, and then you shift your drive aisle up a bit. Yep. And the way that parking lot's used, I don't think that's going to affect it too seriously.
Yep. I agree with you. So we did something similar. It was almost the inverse, where we had provided those plantings along the interior portion of the sidewalk. But to your point, can we? Should we? Yes.
Yeah. I think they should be in both places. I think you should have them along where they are, and then just add another row on the other side, and then you're creating a nice walkway there, really, and a bit more screening between the parking area and just that wide open space from the existing building to the parking lot.
You're correct, and it provides a little bit more of an intimate environment relative to that.
Yeah, it'll be more like a room.
Yep, I agree. So no, we would take no exception to that addition. This was a little bit of work relative to what are we talking about, losing parking spaces, 2, 4, 6, 8, probably 10 to 12 parking spaces would be lost with that request. And we have more than enough existing parking to serve that use. So yes, that could be something we can add. I wouldn't take it.
Maybe we can.
With Suzanne not here, I would say that you're doing an excellent job, Heather, in representing Suzanne's interest regarding the trees and the buffers.
Well, between all of us, we got 3 landscape architects here. Somebody's got to cover it. Well, somebody's got to give them a hard time about it. But yeah, maybe we can make that a condition of the approval.
Yeah, we wouldn't take issue with that. I think that's a good suggestion. So really that's, we had the opportunity to really walk through the elements of the landscaping. Might be a good opportunity here to hand the reins over to Rob Martell, and just to really speak a little bit about our buildings. Rob, if you can unmute yourself, I'll go ahead and pull up one of our elevations and share that for everybody and let you take it from there.
Okay.
And again, if you could just state your name for the record. I know Nick said it, but your name, sir?
Sure. It's Robert Martell, and I'm with Berard Martell Architecture. I'm a principal with the firm.
Great.
The drawings that you're looking at reflect changes that were requested from the ADR. They include the desire to remove window shutters that we had on the previous design, as well as to avoid colonial design. The appearance preference was for a contemporary or a transitional look in the architecture. Also, they were looking for a little more height to the rooftop parapets over the roof. It was requested in order to allow more screening of potential rooftop mechanical equipment. Also, color choices. They needed more definition and contrast, as well as different non-colonial window trim and window types. So in this revised design, the contemporary appearance was applied. In that regard, there are numerous highlighted building jogs that project beyond the main portion of the building, as well as projecting above the typical roof line. So each of the elevations that you see would reflect that. And there you can see the building jogs projecting beyond the main portion of the building. That helps us to break down the overall size of the building a little bit, and we accentuate those jogs, as I mentioned, with darker colors. We go back to the elevations for a second.
Certainly.
We're proposing a mixture of low maintenance siding materials and colors. So the dark colors that you see at the base of the building would be a particular clapboard type. It would be larger than the clapboards that you would see in the next 2 floors up above. So those 2 floors have different colors as well. And the top floor would be a third different siding type as well. Something, if you were to look at it, you might say that looks like shingle style patterning. These are all patterned off of a particular company that makes cement board siding. Typically it shows up on the site, it's already been primed and painted, so that's the low maintenance aspect of it. It greatly elongates how long that it actually needs to be given a second coat of paint. So in general, the darker colors, as I mentioned, they're at the base of the overall building, as well as accenting the building jogs. The lighter colors are seen in the upper levels, as well as the main portion of the building. So those jogs will have some emphasis when they project beyond with the darker colors.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is this EFIS?
I'm sorry?
What's the material? Is it EFIS or is it clapboard or is it, what is the actual material?
They're clapboards.
Okay.
Yes.
They're like cement boards, aren't they? Hardy planks?
Okay.
Correct. Cement boards.
Thanks.
In some places, you'll see that the cement boards are actually panels, and those panels are connecting the second and third floor paired double hung windows, and there's trim wrapped all around those. So we do that a few times in order to bring a little more interest to certain parts of the building. The main entrance, if we could go to the perspective for a second.
Bring that up for you.
Perfect. Oh, there we go. So the main entrance to each of the buildings is, as you can see, pretty much at the center of the building, and it connects one leg of the building to the other. So it's seen with a wide protective roof, and it's supported by not only the walls, but a pair of columns that flank the entry doors. The pair of entry doors are flanked themselves with glass side lights, as well as overhead transoms, providing a pretty well lit entrance for each of those buildings. To the left and to the right of that main entrance, you'll see 2 other entrances. Those are associated with the stair halls. And so everybody has the opportunity to, through their own particular location, exit the building directly to the parking lot, wherever their car may be located.
Can you zoom back in on that drawing? The windows, what are the window treatments? So you've got a larger stationary window, 2 side windows, and then it looks like double hung windows. Are those operating double hung windows?
They are. Okay. They are. Typically, you'd have your, well, we haven't gotten to the detail level yet, whether it's just the bottom sash that goes up or both sashes moved, but it came out of the ADR meeting that a preference was for a 2/2 patterning that you see in the double hung windows. So we mixed that up with single double hung windows, paired double hung windows, and in some of the rooms, we've also put a fixed panel with very slimline double hung windows facing that in order to provide a little bit more interest to the elevations.
Okay. No AC units going to be hanging out of there, right?
Hope not.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. If we can maybe go back to the floor plan for a second. So this is pretty typical of buildings B and C. And you can see that we have the main entrance at the center of the building. Those two stairways I mentioned are flanking that, and they occur at each end of the hallways. In the previous design, we had the stairway on the end of the building. And in one of the revisions that we've done, we've moved those stairways inboard so that they don't block end elevation windows that could occur on those end units. With the exception of the stairway to the top of the plan, that stairway projects out and it connects directly to some of those sidewalks that Nick had been talking about on the north side of each of those buildings. So each of the residents has an opportunity to exit through numerous locations around the building, depending upon where they're parking a car or where they'd like to go for a walk. Now, the color difference in the units, you'll also see that we have dark brown. Those are 1-bedroom units. Orange are 2-bedroom units. That mixture plays a little bit depending upon how the unit count goes, and ultimately gets us to 70 units in each of buildings B and C. Building A's floor plan is a little bit longer, and again, that unit count will be a mixture of 1- and 2-bedroom units. At the center of that main entrance, you'll see an E that represents the elevator, and you'll find a range of utility type rooms also associated with that center area. I think I've pretty much addressed the comments that came from the ADR. Thank you, Nick. We did also provide an option that color scheme wise, you'll see that the center building has a different color tone to it. And that's a proposal for consideration that maybe it looks a little bit different than the other two in order to provide a little bit more interest on site.
What type of different colors? So I think you had like a rust, so these are gray, more a gray palette.
Right, so you can see that on this one, we've got a combination of something called rich espresso, which is a darker gray, almost brown. We also have a little bit of a blue gray, which they call evening blue. A lighter one, which is light mist to the right of that, as well as a gray slate staggered edge panel, which occurs at the top level only.
Thank you, Rob. If there are
Any questions about the colors for the other building? I could review the colors on.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. With having the opportunity to talk a little bit about our architectural design, I think the next item of discussion is really in regards to our traffic study. If I can, I'd like to invite Bob Duvall to unmute himself, and I'll go ahead and give him the overall Google Earth image, and he can guide me as necessary to discuss the traffic study. If you would, Bob.
Thank you, Nick. So the development, as Nick has already summarized for you, consists of phase 1, which is 236 multifamily units. That's the subject of tonight's meeting. And then there's a future phase, or phases, including 86 townhouse units, 48 additional multifamily units and 14,000 feet of retail, which was studied and presented to the city as part of the CDP. But we're really focusing on phase one here tonight, and that's where I will focus my remarks on the traffic study. So the phase one portion of the project with 236 multifamily units has access on Regional Drive only. And as a result, we studied several intersections that this traffic would impact. And those include Regional Drive at Airport Road, Old Turnpike Road, and a signalized intersection, and Regional Drive at the proposed site drive, and to the east, Regional Drive at Chanel. We also studied other intersections that are related to phase two, but again, I'm going to try to focus on phase one traffic impacts for the board tonight. So the trip generation associated with 236 multifamily units works out using standard ITE classifications to 85 AM trips, 104 PM trips, and 106 Saturday peak hour trips. That's 85 in the AM peak hour, 104 in the PM peak hour, and 106 on the Saturday peak hour. We, to decide how those trips should be adjusted, we had some good discussion with VHB, the city's traffic consultant, and city engineering staff. And it was agreed that we would apply a 1% growth rate to future traffic years. These counts were taken, by the way, in December of 2020 and January of 2021. So we had to apply a number of correction factors to that. First, the growth rate assumed for background growth 1%, which is fairly generalized. The actual growth over the last 10 or 20 years has been actually less than that in this area, but just to provide a little bit of conservatism, we used the 1%, which is fairly typical these days across the state, not just in Concord. We also had to apply a COVID adjustment factor because even to this day, there's still somewhat of a suppressed traffic volume that varies region by region across the state, but it's still evident that traffic hasn't returned to the full volumes that it did pre-COVID a little over a year ago. Perhaps it will stay suppressed somewhat due to some increased behaviors such as work at home, which was certainly increased as a result of the pandemic, and it may stay that way. But nevertheless, in agreement with the DOT and the city staff, we compared pre-COVID traffic counts at several key points in the neighborhood with the actual counts that we took in December of 2020 and January of 2021, and compared the seasonally adjusted volumes going back to 2013 in some cases to what those seasonally adjusted volumes are or would be if we applied those factors to today's traffic. And then comparing that and averaging the results over 3 intersections, we determined that a 10% COVID factor is appropriate, and probably it probably as accurate as you can be with such a calculation. And that's consistent with regional COVID adjustments that we've run elsewhere in the state that vary anywhere from 6% to 20%. So this is right in the middle of that range. And accepted by the...
Can I interrupt you just for a minute, Robert?
Sure.
I know that you had a lot of technical conversations with city staff and with VHB about all this very technical stuff, but can you summarize what out, like what the point or what the takeaway was? Because I don't, even as planning staff, I'm not even sure. You're a little bit over my head, so I just worried about the board. I don't know if we need this level of detail. Like what were the takeaways from this? I think only one staff person knows what you're talking about right now. The rest of us are just sort of like, what does this mean? Did it change the design, or did it say that we had to do additional things, or?
Well, thank you, Heather. I'm always happy to shorten my presentation.
Sure. I'm just like, I don't know what he's saying, and I'm sure half the board doesn't either.
I was only going into a little bit more detail than I usually would, just to.
I know there were a lot of discussions on traffic.
Right, and set the stage that a lot of adjustments were made to these numbers. I think that these are good, accurate, sound numbers that take into account a lot of factors, from seasonal adjustment to a COVID adjustment to background growth and so forth. And we feel solid with these numbers, and we feel they're appropriate. So moving ahead a little bit, we also distributed these based on US Census data to determine what's the likely direction that these people will go to work, because there are a lot of work destinations along Regional Drive, so you can't simply take a pro rata distribution, which we would normally do for traffic, but determine where the likely home to work commuter type destinations are. And that shows, not surprisingly, that most of the traffic is going to be going to from the west, so basically towards 93, the two exits would both really pass through the Airport Road, Turnpike Road intersection, and a smaller percentage heading to the east and south, heading down Regional Drive in the other direction. So that being said, we found that the traffic impacts on the study area intersections, Regional Drive, Airport Road, and Chanel Regional, were very very minor. And I'm just going to sort of summarize those in overall levels of service, and I'm going to focus on the future year, which would be the worst case 2032 build. The overall AM level of service for Regional Drive, Airport Road is overall E level of service, and that's on the familiar A to F scale, where A is the best, and F is means that the intersection is approaching failure. And so it's a 73.9 E, 73.9 second average delay level of service E, and in the build phase one, that just changes slightly to a 75.5 average delay, and still a level E. In the PM peak hour, the corresponding numbers are 46.9 seconds of delay, level of service D, and in the build case, 55 seconds, level of service D still. And on the Saturday peak hour, with background traffic less, 23 seconds, level C, goes to 24 seconds, level C. Individual movements are also affected only to a minor extent, with, generally speaking, only a few seconds of added delay to an individual movement, and 2 cars or less of added queue to an individual movement. And likewise at Chanel in the other direction, that intersection actually shows some failure because of the northbound AM and PM heavy movements that are over capacity for that intersection. So that means that the overall intersection shows poor or failed performance. But even with a background of failed performance, which tends to exaggerate the effect of a small number of added vehicles, we're still looking at very minor changes. 163 second F in the AM only goes to 171 seconds. In the PM, 175 goes to 181. On a Saturday, conditions are much better. It's actually an overall A without the heavy commuter traffic load. And it's an A level of service stays A level of service. So the actual numerical impacts on intersection operations are fairly minor. However, that's not to say that there are not some existing problems out there. So again, after discussions with staff about what's the best way to mitigate the impacts of this project, we came up with several recommendations. Number one, Regional Drive at Airport Road, it appears there is reserve capacity in that intersection, in that it's not being effectively used by the current timing schemes. We just received today some additional information about existing timing schemes that we haven't had a chance to analyze, but our recommendation is still the same. We optimized the timing of that intersection, and we were able to show some marked improvements in the AM and PM peak hours. The existing timings on the Saturday peak hour seem to work well, but we would propose making these timing plans available to the city and having this project implement those as mitigation for the Regional Drive Airport Road conditions. At Chanel, the city has a planned capital improvement project, CIP 541, slated for about 5 years out, to propose a signal or a roundabout at that intersection already. And this project would be willing to make a fair share contribution to that project based on its proportional share of added trips. And has already been discussed a bit. We've also identified, even though this project is not doing any vehicular impacts to the Pembroke-Canterbury intersection in phase one, we would be contributing some pedestrian improvements to that intersection, both on-site and off-site, with ADA tip downs and sidewalk improvements along Canterbury. So at that point, we believe that we've identified that the project impacts are relatively modest and that they can be managed, and that some pre-existing conditions can also be improved by contribution of funds or work associated with this project. And in so doing, we believe that we've more than mitigated the minor impacts of this project and actually helped the neighborhood solve some pre-existing traffic problems. So with that, we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I do, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Okay, keep them non-technical for us, if you could, Jeff.
I'll try to do my best. One thing I noticed on the existing condition site plan is you have what's denoted as a closed lagoon and a number of monitoring wells. I don't remember seeing any information in the packet as to the disposition of the lagoon or any of that monitoring. I don't know if you know that info or could provide it to the board.
So I think the best answer I can give relative to that question is how is it currently being mitigated? The owner of responsibility is the prior owner, obviously, in which this incident took place, which is Great American Financial Resources. They're the individuals that are responsible for that remediation. As part of what we did as a project team is we did reach out to their environmental consultant, GZA, to confirm that the anticipated, essentially to confirm the anticipated limitations on redevelopment. Would there be any issues with what we were proposing? It was our understanding that the redevelopment of Phase 1A would not be encumbered by any of those existing issues, but relative to the future phases, there would need to be further coordination. We can speak to the owner of record as far as making those reports from GZA available, but it's not something that I could offer this evening. But it is understood that there is an existing brownfields issue with the former use of it as Bragg Electric, and it would require remediation for the future phases of the project. One of the things I can speak to is GZA was able to confirm the issues with the pollutants are at depth, essentially in 7 to 9, 10-foot range. So relative to what we're proposing with this redevelopment of the property, we wouldn't be encumbered at any of those depths.
Yeah, if you could potentially just at least try and, if it's possible, get some documentation just so that we can, be assured that there won't be any impacts, or something that's going to be, if you're digging a foundation for a building and you're talking, 7 to 9 foot, you could theoretically be into it if a building sits within the area of impact.
And to speak to that point relative to the areas of concern, we're not proposing development in those areas at those depths that would create such an issue. It was something GZA was nice enough to share their time with us to kind of walk us through the site and show us what those areas of concern were, so that we could design the site accordingly.
It's been noted tonight that you've agreed to provide the sidewalk along Canterbury Road under phase 1. One thing I will note is there is currently no streetlights on Canterbury Road. So I would request that the applicant take a look at and work with the city on street lighting both along Canterbury Road, and if there are additional improvements that need to be done at the intersection at Canterbury and Pembroke with that regard, to ensure public safety. The community center is down Canterbury Road, as well as Keach Park. Those are not daylight only facilities. A lot of times people are there into the evening. It would be nice to make sure that the people, have a nice safe access. To get to Heather's point, this junction between phase 1A and future phases in the parking lot, while I agree landscaping is a nice feature, what's kind of prevent potentially residents from using that back parking lot of the old Sprague building, parking there and running into their buildings because it's closer than parking all the way at the other side of the parking lot? I'm just wondering maybe if a fence between the two phases at this stage might be warranted to kind of keep that from happening to the best possible ability. Just so that you don't get people parking back there, like I said, and running in to the back door of a building.
Understood. So that's something we can review with staff. Given that, these are different uses and leased areas, it's a condition of really self-enforcement to make sure people aren't parking in areas where they're not allowed to. Similar to see in any other commercial type or residential development, when space is allocated to certain uses, it could be signed accordingly and subject to towing.
And that's fine, as long as it can be addressed, because I just, in my lifetime, having lived in complexes like this, I understand people will park the closest and take the shortest route. So
I've had similar living situations on that point. So duly noted. We'll make sure we address that with staff.
The driveway entrance and the crossing of the driveway, if you could go to that plan, I'd appreciate it. I know you've been working with staff.
Hang on, Jeff, just a second. When I asked about questions before, I was assuming we were going to ask about questions about traffic. I just don't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to make sure that they're all done
No, I've
with
been
their presentation before you go off on 27 different tangents here. So.
No, I will tell you, Mr. Chairman, that I have been working with staff with any comments that I had on traffic so that I did not get too technical here. Okay. And they've been adequately working.
And again, I just want to keep them on track. And John, I got you with a question. All I want to do is figure out if we've got additional questions on traffic, and then either move on from that and see if
it wasn't on traffic. I can wait.
Okay, let's hold on to that question. So any other questions on traffic for the gentleman who spoke? So my only question on traffic is I know that there's an awful lot of state traffic that comes down Airport Road and takes a right onto whatever it is. The old dump road is all I know the name of it, but whatever goes down by the old dump and then down onto
Old Turnpike Road.
Old Turnpike Road. So there's an awful lot of traffic at 4 o'clock, 4:01 when everybody in the state leaves and goes down to that intersection, takes a right and goes down Old Turnpike Road and queues up at the Manchester Street intersection. So I don't expect anything to happen here, but this is obviously going to add significant amount of traffic to that. I guess the timing for it and the direction of the traffic is going to be 4 o'clock in the afternoon leaving from the state isn't particularly going to be an impact with the numbers that you would have seen coming and going from the apartment complex. Is that right?
Yes, you are correct. That is a heavy move, and the peak hour measured out there is actually 3:45 to 4:45. So your
So there's
observations are right
there's
on.
people skipping out early, huh? And then and to Jeff's point, which is you go from the easiest point to the easiest point. So if you're leaving the complex in the morning at 7:45, and you want to go to Starbucks, you're going to go up to Chanel Drive and take a left, and then you're going to take a left onto Pembroke Road, and then you're going to take a right onto Branch Turnpike, and go all the way down Branch Turnpike. So those little residential neighborhoods that have been there for a million years, I don't think that Branch Turnpike Pembroke Road intersection is made for anything more than what it's getting now as far as traffic turning and going in. Was there any look at that intersection at all, as far as, because again, if you're coming out on Regional Drive, you're going to go left or right. So if you go left and go up to Chanel and take another left, and then Pembroke Road, take another left, the first right to get up onto Loudon Road is down that Branch Turnpike Road, and people go like hell down Branch Turnpike Road because it's long and straight, and there's one little hill in the middle before you get to Shaw's up at the top of that on-ramp, or that top of that road, and get onto Loudon Road.
We did look at that. We looked at it. We didn't take counts and do a full quantitative analysis because the number of trips that would be heading in that direction are relatively small and below the number that usually triggers a quantitative analysis. But we did do a qualitative analysis, and looking at the volumes that are likely to head in that direction and make that move, mostly associated with phase 2, but there would still be some occasional trips heading that way from phase 1.
Okay.
We find that there's, given the volumes and the capacities at those other intersections on Loudon Road, that we don't see any negative impacts that would warrant any improvements.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Nick, you have anything else regarding your part of the presentation before we open it up for questions?
No, I think we're at a good segue to see if there's any additional questions from the board or from the public.
Okay, well, let's go back, Jeff, and finish up on yours. Jeff, hang on, Heather. Jeff, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did, but I don't want to take everyone's time. If somebody else has a question,
No, go ahead, ask it.
So on that driveway, I know you've kind of been working at staff adjusting that driveway location. Honestly, I'm not as big of a fan of pulling the crosswalk back as shown. I understand it's a shorter route. It's a little bit more of an indirect route for a sight impaired person as opposed to staying along the street. The other thing I always concern is if there's a car waiting to exit and a pedestrian crosses behind that car and a car turns in, do they potentially lose view and you create a safety issue, as opposed to if the crosswalk was up in front of the cars adjacent to the street. So if you could just maybe talk to staff a little bit more in engineering about that and see, what might be done. I'm just a little concerned that this is maybe, while shorter, may not be the safest.
Understood. And like with anything, there's always somewhere in between, whether it's directly along the road or as far back as we have shown. So we're happy to work with city staff to resolve that concern.
So stay right here on this view, Nick. The bus stop that's down a little bit from the driveway entrance. So my question on the bus stop is going to be, again, you're going to hop off the bus and you're going to go right into the parking lot. So is there going to be a walkway that goes right into that little bump out that's there? The intent isn't that they're going to have to go down to the driveway and then walk in, because people aren't going to do that. Correct. They're going to come off and go right into the parking lot.
Nope, very astute observation. There's actually something that came up in staff's comments as well.
Okay.
There was a miscommunication between Beth and I as to where that was to be located. So there will actually be an interconnecting sidewalk that'll run right through these center islands and then tie to this. And we can provide some signage or otherwise what city staff feels is appropriate. But that way you're getting off at the bus stop and then you're walking right in and it provides a nice central route to either location.
Okay, and this will be a school bus stop as well?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer to that.
So school bus stop's gonna negate, is gonna prompt the question of where do the, I mean, you got 200 plus apartments. I don't know how many kids that is, and I don't know how many elementary school kids that might be as far as queuing up for the morning bus. But, you know, I don't think we want them standing out by Regional Drive without either a bus, you know, a bus stop or some, you know, some place to stand. So
understood.
School bus question would be one, and then where do they queue up, and, you know, how do they wait out there for the bus to come?
Okay.
Okay, John Regan, I had you for a question. Do you got a question, John?
I still have a question. I was so excited that I could jump on to one of Jeff's comments. Usually talking about traffic stuff, which I don't understand. But he did sort of stick his toes in the environmental aspect of the site. And my question goes to, you know, Sprague Electric, like a lot of places in the late 80s, had to do some work, and they responded to that, and they continue to do work. But their work was done pretty much in the late 80s standards and practices, which have changed a lot since then. And there's still some on-site disposal, the lagoon and some leach fields and the like. So my question was, and it's fairly typical when you look at site redevelopment of a property, is you either collect additional information where you're planning on doing work to make sure you're not going to encounter a problem, or you can manage anything that you encounter. And my question, it sounds like you didn't do any independent sort of environmental work out there. And I'm wondering, I know you've talked to GZA, but have you sat down and sort of run your development plans through Department of Environmental Services to get their take to make sure that you're sort of not going to encounter some of the things that you might see today that they didn't see back in 1980?
The short answer is yes. So this does have an alteration of terrain permit that's associated with it. Any project like that goes through a flagging system for Hazardous Waste Bureau. So they also get their eyes on it as well. Very similar to what we experience in the Bedford Merrimack area with PFOAs. Same idea. They have a database. This is already a registered site. So when we submit that AOT permit, that automatically that flag goes up, and that becomes part of the review. That's why as a project team, we did our due diligence with GZA relative to the owner of responsibility to understand what limitations may exist, and relative to the first phase of the project, making sure we design this site such that it wouldn't be encumbered, with an acknowledgement that for future phases, there may be some additional remediation that's required. But when we look at our comprehensive development plan, you'll note that we have no buildings located within those environmental areas of concern, and that's very much purposeful.
Okay. Thank you. As long as you're sort of, sounds like you're going through those steps, you know.
We got a lot of stuff to do.
I realized that the Sprague stuff was really done late in the 80s. So I think if someone was to look at it now, there would probably be some things they would do differently, but they are, I think, doing what the state's asked, but I think it's worth a fresh look.
Understood.
Are these going to be slab buildings, or are you going to have a basement?
If Rob is on, I would direct that question to him. I believe it is slab.
Sorry about that. I had it on mute. These are anticipated to be slab on grade buildings with no basements.
Okay. Laundry rooms and utilities and things like that?
Not discussed, but there is definitely some space in the center of the floor plan that a communal laundry could be available. It's also something that could be addressed within the units themselves. Quite frankly, that's a marketing issue, and we haven't gotten that far in the design to resolve it.
Yes, I was just wondering how deep you were going to go into the ground, if you're going to be, I mean, obviously footings I get, but you know, if it was a full basement down level as well, or garden level apartments. Okay. Questions? Any more questions from the board? Somebody else has got to have a question. Just look here. No other hands up, huh?
I just have one for the staff.
Yeah.
If we're granting a reduction in parking and they're putting in the provision that they would build this in the future, what's the trigger for that? Is that something that the city decides? Is it something the applicant finds they're having problems and complaints from the owners and it comes back?
So you're asking about the conditional use permit?
Yeah, for the parking reduction.
The zoning administrator has the authority to request that it be constructed. Yes, basically, if the city decide, it determines that there have been problems.
That answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because, I look at where the snow storage areas are now, and if for some reason that future piece needed to be built, those snow storage areas basically all go away. And so I'm just kind of curious, one, is the snow storage area you've shown on the site sufficient? And if those parking all get built, where would all that snow storage go?
Yep. So similar to any other project site, you aim to stockpile your snow on site. If there's not adequate space, it is required to be hauled off. We do feel as if we have left adequate room relative to the limits of clearing, such that snow storage that would be located here could then be reallocated to the limits of the parking here. It was actually something your staff engineer brought up specifically to make sure that when that snow does melt, whether it's in this phase or a future phase, that we ensure that it drains towards the parking lot so it can be captured in our system versus inadvertently draining to the south towards Regional Drive, where you could have a potential slip and fall accident.
Thank you.
So thank you to Gary for pointing that out to me.
So Nick, are you looking for any waivers or?
We do have a couple of waivers, but they're odd in the nature of what we're requesting. One is a waiver for site-specific soils mapping. We went out and did a series of test pits across our area of development. We had the benefit of having some information from GZA on the geologic material that is already out there, which was confirmed in all our test pits. So there is a waiver of the existing soils that's requested.
And this is just phase one, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
There is also a waiver relative to site signage that would be provided at a later date.
Yeah.
And the last one is kind of an ambiguity in that the city regulations require the 3 feet of separation where 4 feet is required. So we're using the state standard relative to separation to groundwater versus the city standard.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board before we open it up to the public?
Rich,
sorry, before. Go ahead.
I have a few comments, but I'm a little concerned that we haven't talked at all about the comprehensive development plan, because that's actually the really big part of their approval, and they can't get any approvals until the comprehensive development plan is approved, which is the concept for the whole site. So I'm a little concerned that we haven't even looked at it or talked about the concept for the site, because this is really what we should have started with.
We touched on it probably too briefly then. Let me circle back to it and give a little more dialogue relative to this use. So we had expressed obviously in fair detail what we're looking at for phase 1A, being these 3 multifamily residential units.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that?
I'm sorry?
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, let's give it a little more detail. So again, trying to preserve existing tree line to the extent practical, infilling in any areas where we could relative to our landscaping. Providing some continuity as we work our way into this phase 2A, which would be another multifamily building. You can see there is an interconnecting road that has been shown here that would take you from Regional Drive to Pembroke. As noted in one of the potential conditions of approval, this is preliminary. There is potential that there would be no full interconnect where this could be truncated to more of a cul-de-sac type design and continue to have all of our traffic leave off of Regional. That's something that we would continue to address as part of subsequent phases for this project. Again, the phase 1B, the mixed use, trying to find a complementary use relative to the fact these are residencies, whether or not this is a convenience store, perhaps a small restaurant, provide some duality of use, but something that could provide amenity to the residencies that are being proposed. One of the areas that I think Heather's right, we really should have touched on, because I think this is a key component to the project, and it's something that Concord really doesn't have in the diversity of residential opportunities, are these townhouses. This makes great use of the space with these attached dwelling units. I'm trying to think if I actually do have some photos of what the intent is of this. So I'll share that real briefly. Let me see if I can share that. Let me stop this. Go ahead and share some of the imagery. So what we're trying to create is that traditional residential feel. So the type of structures that are being proposed for this future phase are these types of townhomes. Again, you're walking out your front door onto the city sidewalk. The expectation is you have nice landscape element along the front of this, and they would be complementary to the existing single-family homes that are located on the opposite side of the street. I know with talking with Heather and Beth and staff, providing this diversity to the existing residential offerings was certainly attractive. We realize it is a future phase, but this is what was being proposed by the applicant moving forward. So I think that's a great opportunity for the city of Concord. Going back to, again, our overall plan, what we have tried to do is build in some traffic calming mechanisms. You would see speed tables and pigmented concrete or pavement used at our crossings to try and slow individuals so this doesn't become a speeding issue. You can see there is parallel parking that is also provided. Again, another traffic calming mechanism. We would create essentially a raised platform at the intersection to those townhomes. Again, as this being a raised platform, again, trying to slow speeds, make sure that this interconnect is appropriate. And as Bob mentioned in the traffic discussion, you know, we really stuck to talking about phase 1A, but there were other considerations noted for the future phases. As you know, staff was well within their right. They asked for us to expand that traffic scope to understand if this does fully interconnect, what are some of the impacts to the adjacent roadways? So we made sure that that was also addressed in the traffic study. And it's addressed as one of the potential conditions of approval for the project, that any future phase requires an update to the traffic study. So whether or not this interconnects or this is truncated, that can be specifically defined as part of that future phase.
So that road, if you zoom in up on Pembroke Road up to that area right there. So if you come down that road, you know, headlights are going to be right into the buildings across the street, you know, waiting to turn left and right.
Not quite. One of the things we did with locating that was we actually took that in to consideration. Are you guys looking at the Google map right now, or
we're looking at the
concept?
Okay, so let me go ahead and switch screens here so we can see that. That was one of the considerations. So when we think about where that driveway is located, it's actually directly opposite one of the existing driveways. It was one of the things that was brought up by one of our butters at our community meeting. Was that side driveway, making sure that we were being mindful of that for the future, but with also an acknowledgement that it's altogether possible that that driveway may not be located there, and it may not even be a full interconnect. That'll really be driven by market considerations down the line.
Okay.
Can you go back to the concept?
I can.
So I'm kind of harping on this because I met with the applicant repeatedly over and over again, probably over a year to hash out this concept. And so I just wanted to give a little credit to them for the time that they spent in working through this concept. So the residences on Pembroke and on Canterbury are actually across the street from those types of units that Nick shared. So the driveways and the cars are in the back. This is actually like a back alley. The units in the center green are actually facing on the green with sidewalks on the green. So it's similar to the concept that John Turlian created downtown with all the units facing each other in the green. But they've actually provided a significantly more space than was in that development. So there's a lot of design and consideration that went into this layout, and I think they did a really great job, and I hope they construct it. So I was disappointed, Nick, that you didn't, tout all of the really amazing work that was done to create these spaces and to try to connect this development with the surrounding neighborhoods. they're not proposing buffers and trying to like screen it from everything. They're trying to connect both with sidewalks and with building facades, and the buildings that they placed on the street with some access points to the street for those buildings. So I just wanted to call that out because this is part of their plan, and this is what we hope that they construct in the future.
Thank you, Heather. And as much as I would love to grandstand and say what a great job we did, it sounds a lot better coming from you. So we appreciate it.
But I just wanted, so this is what I was looking at with your phase 1A and phase 2B. You've got that blue line through there. And I think that is where the line should be, so giving a little bit extra space to put some trees in there and a little bit of green space. I know we have a few residents that have their arms raised for questions. I just also want to touch base briefly. A few different ideas were sort of brought up about traffic lights or different public improvements. And I just want to state for the record, so it's clear with everyone, there are traffic impact fees that are required as part of this project. And so, there are certain conditions of approval that staff has already worked into the conditions of approval. But moving forward, of course, they need to complete all of the phase 1 and phase 1 conditions prior to getting their COs for all of phase 1. But if you guys can sort of scope out the costs of those public improvements and work with staff, there's an opportunity for credits from those impact fees. So things like that were brought up, pedestrian improvements, lights, traffic lights, or different things. Staff can work with you and look into some of those options and see what makes sense in terms of the impact fees and if that's going to benefit your project, something that you might want to do anyways.
No, agreed. And we certainly appreciate that opportunity because it allows us to put those funds directly into this neighborhood opposed to elsewhere. So thank you.
And some of those future projects might the impact fees maybe just go into the district impact fee account. And then when those projects come up, those fees will go towards those projects.
I can't help but wonder why Canterbury Road wasn't used as a point of egress. If you did have egress in for phase 1 off of Regional Drive, why come out on Pembroke Road where you could come out on Canterbury and have a 4-corner intersection? Just wondering if there's any
during the early stages when we were working on this design with them, our sense from previous staff and previous conversations, because we've been talking about this site for years now, was that the neighborhood and the residents on Canterbury would be in opposition to excessive amounts of traffic, like this sort of sleepy road suddenly becoming this major access point for all this traffic. So that was sort of early on something that we tried to avoid. That's for better, for worse, essentially why it ended up this way.
Okay.
It was really very early discussions about circulation, even when Rob Mack was here.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board or staff? Comments, concerns, questions?
I only have one kind of comment on this plan. I like overall. I want to say, Nick, I think you guys, I like the layout. I like the more taller, more buildings being on Regional where a lot of stuff's going on, and the more townhouse, more transition you back into the neighborhood. One thing is at the very top of Pembroke Road, you show a bus stop, and probably about 500 feet to your right on that map is another bus stop. And I'm wondering whether, as you move into this programming and thoughts for the next phase, is there a possibility to work, if that was put in by the school or at the city, is to maybe move the bus stop kind of in front of the retail area in between the two drives rather than have two separate bus stops 500 feet apart?
No, great suggestion. And that is certainly something we can incorporate.
Where's the other bus stop?
It's literally just to the right of the Academy driveway right there at the,
okay. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's got a shelter which could be potentially reused.
Yeah. Okay, Heather, go ahead and open it up if we can. Nick, we're going to mute you, you and your team, until we hear all the public testimony, and then we'll give you a chance to comment. But the public testimony is directed towards the board and staff, and not particularly to the applicant. So we'll take the questions and comments, and then let the applicant come back to the table afterwards.
We will take diligent notes.
Okay.
So I have James, who's been very patiently waiting this entire time. James, I'm going to allow you to talk, and you are now free. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. If you could just state your name for the record.
Sure, thank you. James Amico. And what was the other part?
Well, no, I'm his wife, Kathleen. I'm with him too.
Yeah.
We own Commercial Driving School in 70 Pembroke Road.
Yeah. Okay. And if I could just start off with, a few questions, a few concerns. One is my school leases not only classroom and office space internally in the building, but we also lease 1 acre in the very rear part of the lot that faces regional.
Which is where the phase 1 is going, right on top of our lot that we are leased to use. Our lease doesn't expire until December of 23,
and
not 22, 23.
And my concern was about an hour ago, Nick, you had mentioned that in 2022, you quote unquote, were going to obliterate that lot. I have a very big safety concern of whenever anything is done back there. I have new students and heavy equipment driving. And if there's a noise factor, a safety factor, I mean, I already have had the owners of the building park equipment in my lot with no regard to me, of my entity, of myself being there. So I'd like to know, are they going to relocate me in 2022, or am I going to be able to finish out my lease?
Yeah, that's our biggest concern. We are the only truck driving school in the entire state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
We leased that property over a decade ago for the sole purpose of having that enormous lot for truck maneuvers. So now what? So
we're the only ones that work, quote unquote, outside the building. The other entities, and it just needs to be noted, really. Yep. I have personally spoken to the other tenants. No one was notified at all of this project, but yet the public was invited. And I feel that was rude and disrespectful, to be quite honest.
We had to find out about it in the newspaper a few weeks ago. And we couldn't even find out any other information until we contacted the reporter at the Concord Monitor about the plans for this building. So obviously, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah, I mean, I worked so hard with the Commissioner of Safety, Department of Safety, and driver education rules, and have built this business over the course of the last 12 years. And this could quite easily force me out of business. And, not being notified in the first place, I'm just wondering what else we're going to be dealing with on a project of this scale.
Okay, I think the notification question, I don't know if it slips through the cracks as far as the abutters get notified of the project. And then hopefully the building owner is going to be notified or notify the tenants. I don't know where that falls, Heather or Beth or Sam, if you guys have any input on that. But I think the notification piece is probably something that needs to be discussed with the building owner.
Yeah, we don't have any there's no statutory requirement to notify tenants of a building. Obviously the owner owns the property. And I guess it's unfortunate if they did not know what was going on.
Yeah.
Obviously if they didn't know, they would know where to look. I mean, the plans have been available for months at our office, but if they didn't know what was happening, they
nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's going on when you have
nobody tells you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so we got the question regarding your business, the how are you going to do business for the the foreseeable future regarding that. Obviously, the plan is to take that whole property over eventually and push that and push that issue. But let's see, we'll have them come back on once we finish up with the questions and specifically ask that question. So don't go anywhere. We may ask you to come back on.
Sure thing.
Questions, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Let's open it up to Mike on there. Heather, I see a hand up.
Mike, you are now free to speak.
Okay, if you could just state your name for the record. We can't hear you.
I might have accidentally.
I'm sorry, I got unmuted. It's Michael Barrett.
Michael Barrett. Okay, welcome to the table. I usually say welcome to the table.
Thank you. First off, I'd say how wonderful you guys have been tonight, and I am totally against this completely. The traffic-wise and contamination-wise, it's totally ridiculous. And Pembroke Road right now, we are right at the corner, and the school, they cut through the school. That is now a 4-way, not just a 3-way, because they're cutting through there. And of course, everybody speeds on this road. There's been accidents there. And I just think the impact of what they're saying for traffic-wise is ridiculous. And they probably should try putting in those rubber counting strips and even see how much traffic, because I've only been here at the corner, 6 Branch Turnpike, for 5 years. And the increase in the 5 years has probably been at least 60 to 75% traffic-wise.
So you're on the corner of Branch Turnpike and Pembroke Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And right now they use Branch Turnpike terribly. It's a 30-mile-an-hour road, and I'm at the corner, and they're already doing 40, and the sign is only 100 feet down the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we got that. So we'll certainly talk to them about the traffic levels. I'm concerned about the school. So you see traffic coming off of Regional Drive through the school parking lot and then onto Pembroke Road?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
I live right here, so I see it daily.
Okay.
And I think one of probably the one, not 1A, 1B, I got right through the whole alphabet to Z, is the contamination, because we know our neighbors, and one's been there for 35, 50 years, and they were skimming stones in there. One of his friends put his hand in the lagoon and it melted his skin off.
Oh, jeez.
And they saw buckets being dumped in there when they were kids by adults in the past. And that's I think the contamination is a major concern there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
of him? I've driven down through the school there, and there was bollards, like you couldn't get through. So there's a sidewalk and it's a raised thing. Like how are they getting through there? I could not get through there. I tried. I went through there to try to get through there, and I couldn't get through. So how are they?
There's no bollards there.
There was one I went through. I couldn't get through there.
It used to be there, but it's nothing there now. It's just a straight through.
It's like the sidewalk for the school, though. Like it totally. I'm not doubting you. I went through there, and it was like I definitely could not drive through. It was like last year. It was like last year. It wasn't that long ago.
Really?
Yeah.
You can't drive through here? No.
That's what she's saying.
Everybody's driving through there.
No, that's not
Who's
true.
that piece of shit talk?
I don't know. Can you hit it again? Can we talk again?
We hear you. We hear you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we got that question. So we will, Michael, thank you for your testimony. Heather, we have other hands up.
No.
Whoops.
Oh yes, Josh.
Josh and Mike. So we'll take Josh. We'll have you come on. If you could state your name for the record, please, Josh.
Hi, can the planning board hear me okay?
We can.
Hi, this is Josh from Braden Creek. We live on Pembroke Road. We're only a couple hundred feet away from the proposed site. Before we address our other thoughts and concerns, we can confirm that the school is open to the drive-through from Regional Drive.
They did have
barrier there, but it is no longer there. And we can see the driveway from our window and we can see the cars come through, especially after games and things at the school. It's just constant traffic and they cut across to Branch Turnpike.
I believe that is within the last year, Heather, that they have opened that back up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, and it kind of brings you out right toward the corner of where Mike was speaking of Branch Turnpike in Pembroke. So as Richard said, there's a lot of traffic that goes through there. And so currently people are cutting through the school kind of as a cutway. And I think that it would be helpful to have another traffic report done for the Branch Turnpike corner. I know they said they weren't able to put a lot of time and consideration into that currently, but I think they would find that.
So Josh, before you go any farther, so Heather, can you just make a note to roll back to the Centennial Senior Center approvals when the senior center was originally there? I want to say there was some gated requirements and some conditional uses that restricted access through that property from Regional Drive to Pembroke Drive, Road, exactly for this reason. So
Yeah.
Beth, you're shaking your head, yes?
Yeah, because when we did something with Concord Christian a few years back, that was one of the things we talked about, was that it was required to be closed off. So that's something that we'll have to look at. Yeah, I don't think we were aware at all that they had.
Down, then I don't think they did it with anybody's with anybody's approval. So
I don't even see why they would want to do that. Why would they want traffic?
I have no idea.
I believe initially, you're right, Beth. I think that was made for emergency vehicles only. They used to have almost like sawhorses of some kind of barrier at one point, but that has changed within the last year or so. And since the gymnasium was built as well and all the trees and clearance was removed and taken down, there's been quite a bit of uptick in traffic and cars and whatnot using that. But originally that was set, I think, by the city's protocols only to be used for emergency vehicles or teachers coming in the backside, I believe. But yeah, it's probably been within the last year.
We'll look into that.
A couple other thoughts and concerns were, if you've been up through Chanel, Pembroke Regional, you've noticed there's a lot of deteriorations within the road, even within the last few years. And I know that's a tough job and a lot to keep up with the traffic currently going through there. But what are some of the thoughts that, that amount of traffic and construction, we know that in the current area, that even when they were building the gymnasium and doing some work over at Concord Christian, that a lot of neighbors not only experienced traffic and build up and back up, but also I know one of the neighbors experienced, I believe, even some foundation cracking and leakage from just the amount of vibrations and construction trucks and the amount of vehicles going in and out of there. So that's kind of a thought. Also, something to be honest with you that we're kind of concerned with, being up in this neighborhood for over 15 years. But as stated, a lot of the neighbors, unfortunately, now they're kind of in the process of fleeing the neighborhood because they're making efforts to sell their homes because they're worried about the diminishing home values. And kind of curious what the projection is as far as if these townhomes and condos and units and apartments are slated either to be for sale or for rent, or how they projected as value into the neighborhoods. But I know that we're in the process of probably losing a few really long-term neighbors in the neighborhood because they're in fear of the diminished value of their homes. So they're looking to get out before really it gets too congested and busy. And that's just kind of something that we've had a lot of thought about, because you're right, it is a nice neighborhood. It is obviously mixed use with commercial, more so at the end of the road. But for a long time, it really has had these nice little pockets. But as times have gone on and more population and stuff like that, we have seen more traffic and more increase. But it's nice to obviously have places that are more suitable and needs to meet the standards and the qualifications for our city to grow. But at the same time, what cost does that have an impact on the local neighborhoods and communities of people that have been there for generations? Just kind of a thought of ours.
Okay. Any questions from the board for Josh? No? Okay. You all set?
Thank you for your time.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Heather, any other questions? Okay, it looks like we got no other hands up. So if you've got a question or you just not 100% sure you want to ask it, just go ahead and raise your hand before we have the team come back up to tell us, give us some updates. No, I don't see anybody. Do you? Oh, there's a hand.
It's the same person that spoke before. I don't know if you want to go back or if you want to.
Yeah, I'll open it up. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, are there any future meetings coming up regarding this property proposal?
We will ask the developer that.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and have the developers come back on if we could, Nick.
Yep, we're here.
We'll have you run point on this and kind of hopefully you took some notes and circled back.
did.
So we got some action on the Branch Turnpike. I'll come back to Mr. Amico's comments on the commercial truck driving school, but on the Branch Turnpike piece with the bollards, and sounds like we might be able to make some inroads on that. Road quality, construction equipment with maybe damaging other people's properties and whatnot. I know obviously that's a concern every time you do a project. So why don't we tackle that one first and then Mr. Amico's questions.
All right. Well, relative to the road quality, one of the benefits we see here is the fact that access is off a regional drive. So we wouldn't have the expectation for construction-related traffic to be on Pembroke or Canterbury Road. It's the most direct route from the highway. There's no reason to be cutting between city streets. So the access to this site for the purposes of construction would be via regional drive. So I believe that would likely resolve that immediate concern for construction traffic on those city streets.
Okay, and you're going to pave the entire length of regional drive, right? Is that what I heard? No? Okay.
I don't believe that was a condition.
Folks. Nobody took note on that. And then construction equipment's all going to be on site, going to be within the confines of your property.
That is correct. So we'd identify appropriate demarcation for the limits of work, which is indicated on the plan, and the contractors would be required to stay within that area.
Okay, let's address Mr. Amico's questions regarding the commercial driving school.
All right, now that one's a little harder for me to address because the reality is that really is very much between the landlord and the tenant.
The notification piece, I understand that. Yep.
So that is something that the owner will need to reach out to Mr. Amico to resolve. Just in generalities, it's my understanding that he rents a certain square footage. I believe that area could be reallocated within the area that's not being impacted, but I don't want to be out of school and speak for the owner. So I would allow that to be an owner-leasee resolution.
Okay, so the space that's there, if he's got leased space and saying that the lease goes through 2023, he's going to need to deal with the owner regarding that. I mean, it's a leased space, so I mean, technically he's got a claim to that space. He's just got to either figure out where it's going to be or how it's going to be allocated on the site property, right?
That is correct, sir. Okay.
And then there was a question regarding additional meetings. And again, notification for meetings is to abutters. So, if there's issues that aren't getting out to abutters or to the local folks, we've seen it before where abutters get notification, but the people that are 10, 12, 15 houses down or at the other end of a street aren't notified. And again, I don't have an answer, and I don't think you do as well, Nick. But
well, I can actually help a little bit with that one case. Oddly enough, because we had a community meeting, and at the request of Heather, we actually expanded the notification window and sent mailers to everyone. And Heather, I forget the distance. Was it 300 feet, 200 feet? But that way we could reach a broader brush of people, and also made sure that we had connected with the city councilors relative to this ward, so that they could kind of spread the word as to what was being proposed.
I don't know but we didn't require you to notify like the actual people on the property.
Correct. I mean, abutters beyond the subject.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not the lessees, but the folks that are in the neighborhood, to make sure that that was addressed appropriately.
Yep.
Earl?
Thank you. As the city councilor, I always try to get my constituents and anyone I talk to sign up on the city's website for notifications of planning board meetings, and they automatically get an email, allows you to go in and get the agenda and see see what's going on, to see if you would like to be involved. So I would certainly recommend that to anyone listening, that they go to concordnewhampshire.gov and sign up for any number of city meetings, especially the planning board. So I'll just leave it at that.
Great, thanks, Earl. There's some questions certainly too on the what's it going to do to home values and things like that, and that's really we can't really answer that, and we can't ask the applicant, what kind of condos you're putting in here. Are they going to have granite countertops and elevators? Because that's not our purview. We don't, we look at it from the building itself and figuring out what the market will bear, and it's, our piece of it is just that, to make sure that it's appropriate for the neighborhood, make sure that it works for the neighborhood, and then the market will dictate what kind of properties are going to be there. So that's a tough one, and it's one that we hear often with different types of developments in different parts of the state, or different parts of the city. So I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know, Nick, feel free if you want to elaborate, but you certainly don't have to.
No, I think you put that fairly succinctly. And
yeah.
The reality being these are conventional rentals, so it is driven by the market as to what he's able to rent these spaces for.
Right.
So it's within his best interests to make these nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Heather, no other questions from the audience? No other questions from the board? Any other board member have a question? No? I'm going to close the public hearing, so last chance. So we'll close the public hearing. Nick, thank you very much. Why don't you hang tight with us for a minute, and if you have a question, we'll come back. Any other questions, again, of staff from the board? Comments, concerns, issues that you want to bring up? If not, we can move into this long recommendation from staff. I don't see any hands going up. So Heather, help me out here on the process here. We've got some conditional use permits, we've got some waivers, and if I'm looking at it right, it starts at 6-1. Is that right?
Yeah, the first thing should be the comprehensive development plan.
Right. So the comprehensive development plan with the condition that the detailed traffic study be completed prior to future phases as part of the site plan applications. The study will be scoped at that time. However, at a minimum, the study shall include evaluating Branch Turnpike, Pembroke Road intersections, the location and road connection of the driveway entrance at Pembroke Road, and regional traffic impacts for cut-through traffic through the site. Based on the findings of the traffic study, staff may recommend revisions to the CPD layout, which is the comprehensive development plan layout, traffic calming measures and/or solutions to mitigate the cut-through traffic. An amended CPD will need to be approved by the planning board. So again, we don't deal a lot of times with these comprehensive development plans, but it gives us a chance to come back and take another bite at the apple. So if we do find that, hey, this is happening, or something that we didn't think of is all of a sudden happening, we can then turn around and take some actions on it. So everybody comfortable with that? Questions for staff on that? Anybody? No? Okay, so let's take them one at a time. So if someone would like to make a motion to grant the comprehensive development plan CPD approval as outlined, would someone like to make a motion to grant that comprehensive development plan approval?
So moved.
I'll make the motion. David Fox made that motion. I'll second that motion. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin?
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Member Regan?
Aye.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Member Fox?
Aye.
Member Hicks?
Aye.
Member Rosenberger?
Aye.
And you're all set.
Okay, so that comprehensive development plan has been approved. Under 2.2, we have grant the following waivers to the site plan regulations utilizing criteria of RSA 674-44-1 and 2, which is waivers to section 12036, existing soils, to allow for the existing soil conditions to be identified and classified utilizing USDA natural resources Conservation Service system rather than a New Hampshire soil scientist. The applicant provided test pit data and indicated that soil observations along the infiltration test support NRCS data, and sufficient information has been provided for review. And again, those of you listening, we're talking about the section 1, not the Sprague, the primary Sprague property. Waiver to section 1603.11 signs to provide signage package at a later date, and waiver to section 22072, which is a stormwater recharge to maintain a 3-foot separation where 4 foot is required between the bottom of the infiltration system and the groundwater. Would someone like to make a motion to grant those waivers as outlined?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Pierce, seconded by John Regan. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
and there you have it.
Okay, and 6.3 is to grant a conditional use permit in accordance with section 28711B, construction of fewer parking spaces of the zoning ordinance to construct fewer parking spaces than are required, with the condition that the applicant submit an amendment to the CUP plan with future phase sites, a site plan application that impacts phase 1A future parking areas. Heather, did we address anywhere or should we do it as part of the major site plan regarding your comments on taking a few parking spots at the very end? Again, I don't want to put something in here for conditional for approval if it affects the existing lease space that was brought up regarding the truck driving school.
Well, first of all, I think you can do your conditional use permit first. This doesn't relate to that.
Okay.
Second of all, I think that the lease is a private issue, and I would advocate for making it a condition so the applicant will provide it in that location.
Okay. So
And assume that they're going to be able to make up for whatever 20 feet in somewhere else on the site.
Think about some verbiage and where you want it. I'll address the conditional use permit now, and then we'll address that in a minute.
Okay.
So would someone like to make a motion to grant the conditional use permit as outlined in 6.3?
So moved.
Motion's made by John. I'll second that motion under 6.3 to grant the conditional use permit. All those in favor by roll call? Heather?
Oh, I apologize. Sorry. I was thinking about verbiage. Chairman Woodfin.
Aye.
Member Hicks.
Aye.
Member Fox.
Aye.
Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Member Rosenberger.
Aye.
Member Regan.
Aye.
And Member Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Okay, 6.4 is to grant ADR approval for the site plan for development purpose, subject to providing more accessible green space within phase 1 and a clear connectivity to Keach Park. However, the applicant shall return to the committee with revised building elevations and material for review of suggested building improvements. I had 2 notes on that regarding the sidewalk, regarding the lighting, up into, I guess I don't really fall into ADR approval. We could put those into the major site plan, so I will hold off on those. Would someone like to make a motion to grant ADR approval as outlined? Motion is made by Councilor Pierce. I'll second that motion and have a roll call vote. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin.
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz.
Aye.
Member Rosenberger.
Aye.
Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Member Fox.
Aye.
Member Hicks.
Aye.
And Member Regan.
Aye.
Okay, that brings us up to the big one here, which is 6.5 to grant major site plan approval for the proposed phase 1A multifamily development and associated improvements at 70 Pembroke Road in the Opportunity Corridor Performance District, subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions noted below. Those are outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 6 and subsequent conditions 1 through 7. Do we have any modifications to those subsequent or precedent conditions regarding the additional topics there that I brought up, Heather?
Beth, do you have a suggestion on what to put where?
I was thinking of instead of making it a separate condition, precedent condition number 1 says to address all review comments to the satisfaction of the planning division. And I don't know if we want to add and comments raised during the planning board meeting to address the.
So I think that we need, yeah, something like that, but I think we need to be a little more specific because so much was brought up, but maybe we could say including comments pertaining to extending the green area and adding shade trees between phases 1 and 2.
But do we want to address Jeff's comments about looking at street lighting?
I was hoping not to make that part of the condition, but that's why I was suggesting that we talk about it in terms of offsite improvements and credits of impact fees. We could make it a condition to look at it, but I think staff needs to spend more time, and that's something that might not happen. It would also need to be accepted by council because it's public street lighting that the city's going to end up having to pay for. I think there's a lot more pieces to that I don't necessarily want to make a condition, but I think we should continue the conversations in terms of offsite improvements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's a public safety issue, right? I mean, so you've got a lot of boxes that need to be checked other than just us saying, put some streetlights up.
Right, exactly. That's why I didn't want to necessarily make it a condition, but maybe continue those conversations when we talk about offsite improvements and when they start to, calculate their impact fees and costs of offsite improvements.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I guess we can talk about it and say it probably needs to be there, but we don't want to make it a condition of phase 1 approval. But again, to Jeff's point, if you've got 200 apartments in there, people are going to be walking up Canterbury Road, and you don't want them walking in the street. You want them walking on the sidewalk. If the sidewalk's dark, I don't know what's on Canterbury Road now for streetlights, but I imagine there's not a lot of them that head down.
So maybe we say, and street lighting is deemed necessary for public safety by the city or something like that.
So are we putting in a new sidewalk? Is that's part of this, right? So as part of that, public safety has to go with it. So any street lights required for, public safety use or something like that. I just don't know how to phase it and put it out.
We'd have to look at like the infrastructure and there's a lot of questions. Again, the city council would have to accept it.
Right.
Right, because we have to plow them and maintain and so on and so forth. So,
right. So not put it in, I guess, is what we're saying. So no additional precedent or subsequent conditions.
Well, I would like the additional condition just to be to extend the green space and the shade trees for the space between phases 1 and 2. Okay,
as part of the precedent condition. That
right.
What you mentioned to Nick, and he was amenable to as far as making a a buffer between that first phase and the back end of that parking lot.
Correct. I mean, I don't know, Beth, what do you think about in terms of this lighting? Do you think that should be a condition or?
No, I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is between, we've talked about a lot of things tonight, and that's the only one that we want to make a condition, but there's other things like, I just want to make sure that makes sense, instead of saying that hard and fast, this is what you have to do. Where are we drawing the line?
Right. And I think to your point, Beth, is to make sure that it's acceptable by staff. From review, if staff reviews it and feels it's not acceptable, I don't want to make it too ambiguous and have it too open-ended, but I'm sensitive to the fact that we did talk about a lot of things and we may not catch them all in a condition.
I just think we need to be more specific because I don't want to be as staff in the position after the fact of having to make them do something that we never really decided on in the actual planning board meeting.
Well, would the landscaping plan normally be reviewed somewhat by staff and comments would be provided? So you could just kind of consider it a part of a revision to the landscaping plan to address it, which staff would normally review and provide.
Correct, but we've already written the report and that's not in there. So
maybe the report to be amended as discussed at the meeting to provide an updated plan or something for review.
But we don't update our reports after the meetings. The report as written now becomes a condition of approval.
Then I agree.
So
Then you have to add a condition to
Right.
revise it to accommodate the
Right.
additional landscaping buffer between phase 1A and 2B or
Correct.
whatever the second.
But we can also add a condition to, I mean, I just don't know how to write the lighting one since we don't really have control over it. Do you have a suggestion how to write it?
I think you're leading back to, like you said, it's going to be in coordination with engineering and, an approval of the council. But, to put in a sidewalk in that area where no existing streetlights occur, what's the utility of it? What's it going to be used? What's the public safety factor? You're adding it for public safety, but yet it's not full. So if that street lighting is a condition of the city normally goes forward with that because it's on light poles and we pay for it and whatnot, then it's going to be working with city staff, I would think, to, either provide, maybe they even just provide recommendations, because one of the things is the key is that the intersection of Canterbury and Pembroke, is there enough street lighting there? And they may be better suited to take a look at that from a lighting and a safety standpoint with the traffic engineer and provide a recommendation to the city. And then maybe the city then takes it forth, like you said, as part of an off-site improvement.
So I think that I had a note here that we just basically say to provide it pending safety, engineering, and council approval.
That works.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Earl, I saw you have your hand up. Did you raise you have a question?
Well, I don't want to muddy the waters, but we're talking about things that the questions that came up. Jeff brought up some good questions about sidewalk placement and school bus stops. Where are those addressed?
Yeah. Good question.
So I don't know that we're requiring them to move the bus stop, but I think it's in their best interest, and that's in phase 2 anyways.
Right. So we'll have another bite at that apple as part of the CDP.
Oh, all right. Okay. Thank you.
That was my question. Are these phase 1 discussions or are these future phase discussions? I think we're getting too far down the road here.
Well, the bus stop on Regional Drive was phase 1, and the school bus aspect of it is phase 1. So those need to be addressed now.
But the bus stops on Pembroke
bus stop on Pembroke.
Yeah, that was more of an FYI for them for the future. If they come back to us, as good starting point would be to look at adjusting it.
But I mean, I asked the question about the school buses on Regional Drive. Are we going to have school buses on Regional Drive? I don't know that they do now. Obviously, so you get 200 new apartments, you're going to have a school bus stop somewhere pretty close. And I don't know how those would be addressed from a staff perspective or from a report perspective.
If somebody puts in a housing development in any neighborhood, what happens for a school bus? I mean, sometimes it's just a corner of the right
Well,
corner.
when they put Reggie Moreau's project up there in the North End Bog Road area, I mean, they, how did they address it at that point? I don't know. It was so long ago, but.
I mean, I would think the property owner would want to make the kids comfortable out there under some cover and work on that, but
I would assume a bus would turn in. I mean,
no, I don't think so.
In the vineyards off Bog Road, the bus stops at the entrance, and the kids walk, or parents bring the younger kids to the bus stop on Bog Road.
Right, and the bus will stop in the street, and you'll have to get in at the street.
Right.
In this case,
Bog Road is not Regional Drive, though.
No, and that's right, and that's what I'm saying. If they get the bump in and they're bumped in, nobody's coming from across the street, so you don't have to worry about them stopping in the middle of the road.
If it's a school bus, they're still going to put up the red stop sign.
Absolutely.
And I don't think they're going to stop there.
But in those cases, they'll stop right in the middle of the road for that reason. So they're not going to pull over, but you're going to pull over into that bus stop area. But I guess the point is well taken. How do we do it, and how have we done it in the past? And I don't know. It needs to be addressed, but how do we address it in the report?
I mean, watch the buses go down Loudon Road and at some of those developments there. They don't pull into every single development off Loudon Road.
Right.
They stop on the street and all 4 lanes stop.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's gonna be very similar out here. The only issue would be is, accessibility. Normally the bus would pull in and it has the ramp that goes out to the sidewalk. If you're gonna use that as a school bus stop, they may have to provide a ramp off the sidewalk at some point if the school bus is gonna stop in the road so a student could get off. That might be the only difference between a school bus and a regular bus stop, or the ability to use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't address it? Is that? You need some help here.
School districts usually address school buses. We
Yeah,
don't typically, we don't do that.
I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
that we do.
I don't think we should go there.
No, okay. But if there's a bus stop out there, it's a cat stop more than probably a bus stop, right? Okay, and they address that separately. Okay, so did we come up with some idea of how we can put on a precedent or subsequent conditions so we can move on here?
I'm inclined to keep it.
What's going to be on it? I mean, again, to Earl's point and to Jeff's point, is there might be some other little dotting the i's and crossing the t's things that we haven't thought of.
Well, we talked about addressing pedestrian safety at the Canterbury and Pembroke Road. So maybe we can just expand that we'll look at other, besides the tip downs and the crosswalk, we'll look at other pedestrian safety
Issues on Regional Drive?
Issues that may need to be addressed, and still we have in there the condition that there could be a traffic impact fee credit. So just to work with the applicant on that. So I think that maybe just an understanding, and if they agree.
I thought the pedestrian safety stuff was already in there as conditions of approval.
It is, but just to expand on it, that maybe that'll include street lighting.
Okay.
Even though it's not a condition, but it's just an understanding that we may explore other. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in writing in a condition. It's just amongst ourselves, we'll agree, we'll look into it.
We'll agree here amongst us friends, right?
It's recorded. It'll be in the minutes. I mean, all of this is in the minutes, so it's not like it's not in any record.
No, sure.
Which condition has the pedestrian safety? Is that?
It's not a condition, it's within the, it's where it says address planning
Address all
comments.
review comments to the satisfaction of the planning department.
Can you read condition 1 again, Beth, please?
All it says is address all review comments to the satisfaction of the planning division.
Okay, including pedestrian safety comments addressed during the meeting and grass and shade tree strip between phases 1 and phase 2.
Perfect. So that's our amended precedent condition 1, and nothing else needs to be added, right? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move it.
Someone like to, Earl's making a motion to grant site plan approval under 6.5, was seconded, I think, by John?
Yes.
Yes. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin?
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Member Fox?
Aye.
Member Hicks?
Aye.
Member Regan?
Aye.
And Member Rosenberger?
Aye.
Okay, that passes and carries, so that is great. Congratulations. And again, I think some communication from either the developer to the landlord, and then from the landlord certainly to the folks leasing that property in the back need to be communicated with a little bit better. So we'll put that right on the owner's shoulders and make sure they do a better job there. And just hats off to everybody that did a lot of work on this. I know you guys have been working hard over the years to get it squared away. So we're looking forward to this development going forward. So item 7E on our agenda has been pulled again. We addressed that. Hopefully nobody's sitting here waiting for, 7E, right? It's been pulled.
Correct.
I announced it at the beginning of 7D,
Yep.
sorry, but 7E has been pulled off the agenda. So we will move on to other business. We've got item 8A. Do we want to address that now quick, Heather?
Yeah, this shouldn't take too long. So it's a request, motion. It's a request to rezone from Reggie Moreau to rezone a parcel north of his existing parcel out there, his last one that he developed. I'm just going to bring it up. I'm having trouble finding it. Hold on, get my agenda up here. I'm going to share my screen. I want to share.
My neighborhood now.
Yeah.
So this is rezoning a small little chunk of land that's on kind of the back piece of the property. I think it's from RO to
RM.
I think. The proposal is not anticipated to place a great demand on the city's existing services for infrastructure through water and sewer concerns may need to be addressed during the site plan process to ensure appropriate water pressure drainage and mitigation to potential stormwater management issues relative to adjacent properties. And again, I think the important piece here, the proposal may otherwise benefit the city in terms of increasing tax base, providing greater opportunities for housing, and making more efficient use of land than a lower density development would provide. So this is the small little, well, the large little purple spot there that's in RO, right, Heather? Right.
But yeah, I can make this very simple. So this is his existing that he just recently constructed. This is zoned RS. This is zoned RO. He wants to rezone he wants to do this, basically rezone this whole piece RM and produce more of this type of development up here. We're in support of it. The only comment that I have to make is that if we do this, it leaves this little RO island up here. So I reached out to this homeowner. My understanding from Reggie is that she's out also trying to sell her property for development. She's got this piece is zoned RS and this piece is zoned RO. All of this is zoned RO because of wetlands. And the wetlands basically go, if you can see my screen, correct?
Yep.
The wetlands basically go like this. All right. So if we did, my suggestion is to rezone this piece as well, RS, so that her whole parcel is RS and it would be consistent with all this RS. She still wouldn't be able to develop back here where all the wetlands are, similarly to the way Reggie can't develop all of this because of where the wetlands are. But then this whole block would be RS and this whole block would be RM, and you know the wetlands would be what they are. But it would be a better zoning practice. I called her, I emailed her, I got multiple phone numbers for her. I could not get in touch with her at all. I sent her a letter. I could not get in touch with her. So I didn't include it in the report, but I wanted to bring it up with the board to say, you know, you could recommend to council to rezone the whole thing so you don't leave this weird little piece. Reggie seems to think that she would be in favor of that, again, because she is trying to sell her lot for development. And it would possibly give her a little bit of extra RS right here. The rest of it would be wetlands and she couldn't do anything with it anyway. That's it in a nutshell. We're in support of Reggie's piece. He's going to do more of this type of development. And I'm just uncomfortable with this floating RO zone up there.
I'm uncomfortable with the floating RO zone, but I don't want to recommend a change to zoning until we talk to the property owner either. Do we? I mean, there's probably no detriment to it, but I don't, I'm uncomfortable doing it until they at least get a conversation or we understand where her thought process is.
Yeah, I don't know how to get in touch with her other than literally going to her door and knocking on it. If we don't do it now, I will recommend it as part of the new zoning code. Okay. Because it's not cool to keep it there, but it's just a matter of, do we do it now or do we do it later? That's why I didn't recommend it for the same reason, but I thought if the board, felt like it would be okay, that it would be okay.
Anybody want to recommend changing that?
I just have one question, Heather. I'm a little confused because there's two lots that are shown on your map, but does he own both lot 54/23 and 54? Or are we running into the same issue with that little sliver?
No, that's the only reason that line is there is because it's actually a different school district. So that little parcel is taxed differently, but it's part of the development to the south.
Okay, thank you. That's all. I just want to clarify so we weren't running into the same issue as on the northern side with a different property owner.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Matt?
If we don't do something with this, we're going to be looking at this next month or the month after.
That's exactly right.
Have the same discussion. So can we do something proactive that maybe we don't have to listen to this again another month?
Yeah.
Or two?
And the extra abutting property you want?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get in touch with the property owner and say if she, I think I heard, is amenable to this, then our recommendation
So
would be.
do a condition, do an approval condition on the fact that we at least touch base with them.
And if we can't, then we just move forward with the other piece and we hear it again in a month, but at least we tried.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. That's acceptable to me. I just want the person to be able to weigh in and say no.
Yeah, we shouldn't do it without a
I
person.
can't think of a negative. There's no negative reason. I don't think there's a negative reason why not to do it. But you're right, Matt. There's no sense in having it come back to us and see it again.
Agree. Yeah.
Or tell Reggie that if he wants this, and he's got to find her and ask her.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly.
We just have to do it. We just have to somehow get in touch with her before the abutter notifications go out in 2 weeks for the council hearing, because it needs to be noticed appropriately if we are going to include it.
And if you can't, then you don't. We'll just address it when we get in touch.
Well, could we do an opt out? Could we send her a letter notifying the owner that these are the plans and give her the option to contest it?
I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's that formal. I think it's our the planning board is gonna look at it tonight and say we have no objection to changing it. I'm not speaking for the board, but if we have no objection to changing it, it doesn't need to come back before us again, and we can go ahead and push the change through. But we want to have the person get a chance to address it.
This is the Blueberry Lane, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody know her? Reach out, please.
I've been out there and I've
Whose
never
district?
seen anyone.
Whose district? Which district? I don't know.
It's my ward. Yeah.
It is? I mean, ward, sorry.
Okay, so
I'll go out there with
let's-
you, Earl.
So if we take a motion to grant this change, this zoning change, and also include that additional property with the condition that we get in touch with the resident before we push it through, and if we don't, we pull it off and hear it at a later date. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So how do you want us to handle that? Is it a motion to recommend?
I think you just made a motion.
I did. I just made a motion. So would someone like to
I'll
second?
second it.
I heard Earl first, David. So Earl's saying he's going to second it. Let's all in favor by roll call.
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger.
Aye.
Okay, almost 10 o'clock. We got one quick item left on the agenda tonight, which is item 9, a request for a letter from the planning board in support of a transportation alternatives program application to fund a section of the Merrimack River Greenway Trail with a report from a senior planner. Heather, give us a quick update on that.
We want you to say it's a great idea, and we want you to sign it. And we already wrote the letter just in case you think it's a great idea and want to sign it.
And I read the letter. I think it's a good idea. Anybody have any concerns?
Third.
Anybody have any concerns about sending a letter?
No.
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 Of course not. Okay, so we don't need to do a motion or anything.
More
like that.
bike paths. This is good.
We'll go ahead and send that message, send that request on. Okay, and I believe, Heather, that brings us to the end of our agenda, does it?
Yes. Actually, did you want to discuss member of the Heritage Commission? That was supposed to be carried over to this month.
I know, I put it on Rich's little notes, agenda notes, and he didn't.
I nominate Jeff.
Let's discuss it when we all have a little more.
Yeah, we'll do that because we want to get out by 10 o'clock, and I can say I haven't kept you past 10
No,
o'clock.
I thought about this all month. I thought Jeff was going to do it.
I did too.
Yeah. I'm letting you down, Rich. It's 10:01 already. We're already past.
Yeah, we only have about 10 seconds. I'm still at 10 o'clock. I second the nomination of Jeff.
Jeff,
Not my area of interest. Sorry.
All right.
Oh,
We'll keep working on everybody. We'll keep working on it. So,
what's John doing? I don't know, John.
John did his time. I took over for John.
David expressed some interest.
The interesting thing about that is that when they had their meeting, Heather didn't realize, but I was able to chime into the meeting, just nobody knew I was on that call.
I knew you were there.
So I watched what they do.
That's why you don't want to be a member?
I'd like to have a beer with you, Richard, before I do anything.
Well, I'm gonna recommend that if we don't see some of these extra members here, we'll nominate someone to become
I think that's why Carol and Suzanne, they're not here.
But, I mean, but we want to make sure it's somebody that's got some interest in it and got some energy to do something with it, because that's what it needs. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to belabor that point. We will move on and we'll find the right fit here eventually. Would someone, I know it's still early, but would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second.
All right. Motion's been made and roundly seconded. All those in favor by hand? By a hands up, everybody. Everybody is waving. All right. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and thank you for a great meeting. And we will see you all next month.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.